This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What a party that was, folks. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk, the day after the 112th Grey Cup right here in Winnipeg. Congratulations to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Rider Nation painted the town green last night as Saskatchewan won their 5th Grey Cup and their first in 12 years on the home of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But what a game and what a week it was here in the city. I got to tell you, and we'll kind of dive into more of this. Jeff Hamilton's going to join us. I know Michael and Connor will have their takes. Just before we get into the game and everything else, I just need to recognize the Grey Cup Festival Committee. Brienne Marcoux, I know Wade Miller obviously leading it. Congratulations to Wade on that Commissioner Award yesterday. Certainly very well deserved. And a lot of the business leaders, some great sponsors of ours involved. I mean, people that really care about this city coming together to put on an incredible week of programming and parties for one of the great Grey Cup weeks that we've ever seen. And I mean, listen, the cooperation with Mother Nature just made it that much better. I mean, it was an absolutely smashing success by literally any measure. And then we got to the game yesterday, and the Riders and Alouettes went right down to the wire with a pretty damn exciting football game that everyone, I think, enjoyed. So overall, an amazing week for the CFL, but just a great week for Winnipeg. And I think there's a lot of people that should be really, really proud with all the work and the volunteer hours, everything that went into putting this off to make our city look as good and as vibrant as it has in a really, really long time. So looking forward to talking about it, talking about the game. We've got lots to get to on the Jets, who are just practiced a little earlier. Connor will jump on with us. He was down there today. We'll also have Ken Wiebe, who's back and was, of course, covering the game on Saturday night in Calgary, where the Jets salvaged 2 points in a shootout to come back from their 6-game road trip at 2-4 with the Columbus Blue Jackets in tomorrow night. We'll probably touch on a little NFL as well at the end of the program. But a recap and breakdown of Grey Cup, both on and off the field, and a lot of Jets talk is what we're signing up for today on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Hope you all had a great weekend. I saw so many WSTers at events over the course of the week. And a lot of people that maybe listen to the podcast, we don't know from the chat, that came up and said they're enjoying the show. Really appreciate all that feedback. And it was great to see so many people that support us, supporting the league, the CFL, the Grey Cup Festival, and having such an awesome time over the last number of days. Hey, just before we get going, got to thank all of our sponsors, especially our partners at CoolBet. Was awesome having Pat and Jake and Eng here for the weekend. Had a great night Saturday with a whole bunch of friends down at Confusion Corner, and obviously we're all around. They do have a tight ties with Brett Lawther and the Riders, so I will hold off my disdain for their outright support of the green and white yesterday. But it was fantastic having those guys in, and it'll be fun to have them on the show later on this week to get their perception of their first time here in the Peg. Also want to thank our friends at Princess Auto. Yeah, there they are with the cup last night. Brett Lawther. But yeah, and looking pretty good considering how much fun was had on Saturday night as well. But needless to say, the Riders, that gang, I think they were down at the Delta afterwards. Big party that was 12 years in the making for Saskatchewan, but it was great to have them, and shout out to everyone that came and joined us on Saturday night as well. Thanks to the Winnipeg Jets. Don't forget, gang, we got 2 big games this week, Columbus tomorrow, and then actually 3 games this week because a big weekend. Nikolai Ehlers' return. Friday night, Carolina Hurricanes. It did look like our section sold out. I will look to get extra seats. I will make that email today. I'll let you know tomorrow whether we were able to get any more for the WST section, and then a Sunday afternoon game against the Minnesota Wild. So lots to get to on the Jets. Of course, Rolly's Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, Canadian Club at Uptown Alley, Princess Auto, man, the Princess Auto people were everywhere. Not surprising, being what they do for the city of Winnipeg, that they were front and center with so much of what the Grey Cup was. Of course, our friends at Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba Battery, Clean Line, Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug. We'll get to a why not question of the day for Not Auto Corp at Waverly and McGillivray, and of course some fan feedback for fansfirst.ca. All right, let's get Remo in here. And Reem, how are you today? And how was your Grey Cup experience?
I had a great Grey Cup experience. So we had a fun week of parties. It was at Taste of the CFL on Friday. And the one thing I love about the festival and the Grey Cup experience is I'm at this Taste of the CFL. A number of Bombers are there walking around. Brady Oliveira, Nick Dembski, Pat Neufeld. Mike O'Shea is all around the festival. I saw him just outside Alan Doyle. Right after signing that extension, the news broke 4:30 on Friday, of course. Right after we hit end stream, they come out with that release that I wasn't even mad. That was, you don't really get news that good at 4:30 on a Friday. Yeah, Pinball was walking around the festival as well. So that's what the Grey Cup's all about, seeing all the different jerseys. It was so much fun. And as for the game itself, that was a mild Grey Cup. I remember 2015, I froze.
It was gorgeous.
Yes, I remember 2021 West Final in December. That was Arctic. This was very balmy, very mild, very well done by Winnipeg. It's funny, you mentioned Wade Miller getting the Commissioner's Award. Shout out to him. What Dave Naylor and Farhan Lalji gave him all the credit for putting on the media party. As many events he was at, Taste of CFL, he's getting on the microphone, thanking everyone. But we're on the concourse, and it's getting really congested. No one's moving. This was near, not the Rum Hut side, but across where the Bomber store was. No one's moving, and I just hear this voice: "Everyone, back up, back up!" And it's the CEO of the Bombers, Wade Miller, in the trenches, trying to get everyone, to move out of the way. I guess there was something going on. I couldn't believe, during such a critical game, he would be, putting it, rolling up the sleeves and doing the work there, Huss.
Yeah, listen, I love our stadium. I love everything about it, with the exception that the concourses are too narrow, and at certain times you can just get into absolute gridlock, and it can be an issue. And obviously for a big game like the Grey Cup, that was going to happen. But yeah, listen, what can you say about Wade and the job that he and his team have done? He is a guy that will be in the board meeting, but will also be boots on the ground in the concourse, helping out with pretty much anything to make it happen. And they just nailed it out of the park. The feedback I got from so many people that were in for the game was unanimously positive on what the Bombers and the committee were able to pull off. So, you know what? Speaking of which, let's get to. I'm going to do this little bit of a different order than we normally do. Although I will just throw the why not question of the day for Not Auto Corp at Waverly and McGillivray. Where, by the way, I know we haven't had the snow yet, but do you have your winter tires yet? They got a great winter tire program there if you want to hook up with that and get that taken care of before it is too late. Just your Grey Cup experience overall. What was your personal highlight? Did you get out to many of the events? Let us know in the chat how you enjoyed being the hosts for the Grey Cup this year. Because I do want to get to fan feedback for Fans First. Of course, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. There was tons of tickets at Fan First for the Grey Cup, which a lot of people, a lot of Rider fans, I think, jumped on, maybe coming over late, deciding to see it. But we've got Jet games coming up. And again, Fans First, what you see is what you pay. No fees on those seats. There is a lot of heli sighting at the Grey Cup. Yep. Connor Hellebuck certainly was there. There was no heli sighting in practice today. We'll get to that in a minute. But Michael Hutchinson, of all people, popping in. Lots of love for Zach Caleros on TSN and the job that he did from Jets number one and Jerry Hansey. Let's see here. We've also got, the running man's all fired up. He's a rider guy. Woohoo Riders. Riders bring the Grey Cup back to the West. Waiters, Shea, Hustler, Paterson lost the game. Hey, waiters. Listen, Issue Boy Bruce speaking for many of us. I'm so dusted. There's going to be some long sleeps today. And yes, Derek Schmidt, Huss's voice sounds like he made up for lost time. I never really got it back, but when I declared myself good to go for Thursday, I knew that this Monday would come and it would be a challenge. Nothing will ever be close to the show that Gary and I had to do on TSN after the 2011 Grey Cup in Vancouver. That's maybe a story for another day, but that taught me some hard lessons of what I'm able to persevere and plow through. And I'm leaning on that experience today, Reem.
I'll say I was listening to the radio broadcast of the game yesterday. It was Dusty and Lapo, and Lapo sounded like he had a rough weekend. He was struggling through the third quarter. I heard them call the Shea Paterson fumble, which was an amazing call by Dusty, and I can't believe that that was the game-deciding play. Basically, the QB. I remember that happened with the Stamps. Was it Tommy Stevens that year where he fumbled at the goal line, or was it, I forget who? Was it Tommy Stevens?
Maybe it was. I can't remember. The Shea Paterson play, and we'll get into this in a minute. I mean, that is the moment. But anyways, just a few more of these comments. Tristan Rivers music. Hopefully we took our disgusting medicine. It'll be another 12 years before the 6th Ryder Cup. Tyson Ducharme, Huss looked like he played in the game. I feel like I played in the game. And I think there's a lot of people in this city are the same way. And Tyson, I also feel like I played in the game. It was a rough but amazing weekend. And again, I saw, all the goons from the North End, Spency and Bruce and Tyson, Scott Westman, the whole gang out there at the game yesterday. Outside of the game, Reem, I have to say, with the exception of, a few, I had to laugh at Westy's tweet saying no one knows who MGK is. I'm like, Troy, you're like, listen, okay, a lot of 55 pluses might not know MGK, but he's actually one of the biggest stars in pop music right now. I thought that the show itself was good. And you know what? At a time where usually people just like to complain about everything online, Reem, the reaction from people that maybe weren't familiar with him beforehand, I think was overwhelmingly positive for the halftime show.
I'm not a huge fan of the music, but I thought it was a good show. They had good pyro. The stage was cool. It was cool seeing them bring it all out. I liked how his back was to me. I saw some people complaining online about that, but it's for TV and didn't really affect hearing anything. I watched it on the screen. Thought it was a good show. Wasn't my cup of tea. He did do some covers, which I appreciated, and there was one guitar solo. His guitar player, what's her name? Sophie Guitar on Instagram. She's got 1 million followers. I knew who she was, actually. She did the halftime show at the Rugby World Cup.
Oh.
She played Bon Jovi, and everyone sang along to it. But yeah, it was a good show. It has good pyro. I didn't really complain about it. There are people around me singing some of the words. I did enjoy, more of the Our Lady piece. That's my era, and I was singing along to Clumsy and Starseed for the pregame. So look, they had that. I got my fix there, and yeah, MGK is huge. I saw TSN doing a great job promoting it on social media, on Bar Down and on Much Music channel. So the halftime show is just a marketing opportunity for the league, for the artist, and they're picking someone who's popular. I thought he did a good job. I wasn't in love with the music. It was really hard to beat Jonas Brothers last year was amazing, and Green Day was excellent 2 years ago. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was terrible, but it was a good show. I was entertained.
No, and listen, a lot of people that weren't familiar with them were saying, hey, that was really good. This is what Westy tweeted out. Machine Gun Kelly, good energy with his performance. But most all at the stadium or watching on TV have never heard of any of these songs. I don't know how you could have not. Listen, I guess if all you do is listen to 92 and 97 for another Kim Mitchell track or, Queen for the millionth time in your life, then maybe. But look at Spotify, look at streaming numbers, look at any pop culture thing. I mean, he's been all over it for the last 5 years. And especially with that new album that just came out in the last year was all over the place. So I think you're just sort of outing yourself. Like if you were not at all familiar with MGK, and this is fine, you were probably just, people that like old music and, not really in tune with what is current. But I mean, when they're putting together a Grey Cup halftime show, like it's not necessarily to appeal to the 65-year-old guy that's been to 35 Grey Cups. It's trying to get more eyes on the Canadian Football League and the championship game and expose some new people, especially that young generation that's been lost in a lot of markets. So anyways, 2 thumbs up to that. I thought they made a good choice. I thought it was executed well. And for the most part, I think people did enjoy it. As far as the game goes, Remis, and we'll get into this with Hammer when he joins us in a bit. The Shea Paterson fumble, I cannot believe that happened. I mean, the Saskatchewan Roughriders were leaking oil big time. And that goes in. It's a 2-point game. They've got a 2-pointer to tie it. And considering they had a 17-point lead in the last dying seconds of the third quarter, if the Alouettes score at that point and get the 2-pointer and it's a tie game, all bets are off for what happened. But instead, not only do they fumble and pick it up, they get the benefit of picking the ball up technically in the end zone, moving it out to the 30. Definitely the biggest play of the game and the one that ended up giving the Riders the break that they needed to avoid what could have been a crushing and embarrassing collapse in the fourth quarter against the Alouettes, who were feeling it and were right back in the game on the doorstep of tying it up.
Yeah, the Riders had a 25-7 lead, but it felt like Montreal was never out of it. They were getting the stops, and you could tell Davis Alexander wasn't 100%. You can talk so much about, he's getting treatment, he looks good, but once you're out there and you have defenders chasing you and you're forced, to run, which he really didn't do a lot of until he had to at the end and, suffered the injury further. They had trouble moving the ball, turn it over 3 times, 3 interceptions for Alexander, first multi-interception game of his career. And you look at the completion percentage, Alexander was way behind Trevor Harris, who was excellent in efficiency. So I think Montreal, the turnovers killed them. But even still, as you said, they were right in there. The defense was coming up big, which you knew was going to be a factor. And at the 2-yard line, you can't fumble it there. And it's the CFL play where you bring in the backup quarterback for the most critical thing. I don't mind doing it from the 1, but from the 2, you got Stevie Scott, who's awesome. And I don't know, he hadn't fumbled all year, Shea Paterson, so it's just an unfortunate play. Ran into the back of his own game, maybe got a little excited, trying to go for the end zone and instead of just trying to plunge forward. But we could have had a even more classic finish than we did. They still had a Hail Mary. You never know what happens there. But yeah, after Brett Lowther missed that field goal, it was game on, Huss. And they were right there. It should have been closer, but credit to the Saskatchewan defense, who the 3 interceptions and the fumble recovery. That was really the difference.
Oh, listen, they didn't take care of the football. I thought Davis Alexander was off on a couple throws. The one early in the game was one that you just can't throw. Obviously had another one that was just a poor throw. And listen, maybe it was his hamstring or his leg. It wasn't quite normal to him, and he was, off a little bit throwing it. But listen, they got right back in that game and were on the doorstep of tying it up before they weren't. The one thing I'll say, Remo, we've talked all this stuff about rule changes and the CFL's game is so great. Why would change? If there was a way I could ban quarterback sneaks in the CFL,
Yes.
I would do it. Like, the brand of CFL football is amazing. And then that's sort of like the tush push, but, probably 3, 4, 5 times more during a game. Like, it's the default short yardage play, and it's just the dumb move forward. So the argument being like, why are you taking the ball out of your best player's hands? Remember all those stupid conversations? People are like, oh, Brady Oliveira hasn't scored in 10 games. Well, yeah, that's because every time they get close, they just give it to Sean McGuire. Like, it's not like Brady's not able to do it. He just wasn't getting the chances to do it. Now, I have no suggestion as to how you could legislate that and not allow coaches to do it, but it has ended up being a crutch. There's not a lot of creativity offensively on any short yardage play in the CFL right now. The running backs aren't involved. The starting quarterbacks aren't even on the field. So maybe, just maybe, some coaches will look at that play a little differently after it basically cost Montreal the chance to truly get back in that game last night. That's the only positive coming out of that play, is that, maybe we don't see it as much, although considering the way coaches have gone this year, I don't think that that's coming anytime soon.
Well, you have 3 downs, which is good, and you play 1 yard off the ball. So you pretty much, if you get it close, they're just, going to run it the way they do. And yeah, coaches have figured out, hey, just put in the backup quarterback for a run up the middle. And maybe if Alexander's hamstring's healthy, they use him. I know I always got pissed off as a CFL fantasy player that Brady Oliveira would take it to the 1, and then they just give Sean McGuire the touchdown. It's terrible. It's not fun. It's not fun to watch, but I get why they do it. So I don't think there's anything you can do to legislate that, but maybe you do think twice. If you're in a Grey Cup and you're at the 2-yard line, instead of handing it to your backup quarterback, you do give it to your running back. I mean, Stevie Scott, Luke Wilson mentioned this on broadcast. He's averaging 5 yards a carry. You don't think he can punch it in there from the 2? So I think it's just a tough play. They do it all year. It was the first time he fumbled. You just feel bad.
His career, basically, apparently.
Yeah,
First fumble ever.
You just feel bad. So, and yeah, they had the conversation with Zach Glarus and Luke Wilson, and I think that's just part of the game, giving it to the backup quarterback, and he didn't execute, and I think you can come up with, well, they should have done this, should have done that. That's what they did all year, and he scored the first touchdown of the game after Scott couldn't punch it in, and I had Scott first touchdown score. But
yeah.
But
the Stevie Scott props did come in, though. The over came in on him. His touchdown prop at plus 275 sort of bailed me out for what I lost on the Alouettes to win the game. And by the way, Katie St. Germain with the under.
She was great.
Even close. She was amazing. And that jacket was big time. What a great look. 73 and a half seconds or something like that. So not even close to the 90. So cash it if you took the under. And there's waiters. Yeah, Andrew Harris just wins. It's amazing. He leaves the Bombers, goes to Toronto. They win the Grey Cup, and now turns to coaching. Gets a job with the Riders. Guess who's back in Winnipeg, winning another Grey Cup? Andrew Harris. Maybe we have to hook up with Andrew coming up in the aftermath of all of this. Listen, we are going to get to the Jets with Ken and Connor, and we'll kind of focus on that more after Hammer comes on with us. So I tell you what, we're going to bring in Jeff Hamilton. We've got to talk about, the news that is official today, but broke on Friday afternoon, just while the story was everywhere throughout Grey Cup week, the future of Mike O'Shea. The Bombers put it out today. The Canadian Mafia is back for 3 years. Mike O'Shea, Kyle Walters, extending through the 2028 season. So now it's time to get this team back to where they want to be, and that's the ones planning the parade today. There it is, Bombers are putting it out, 2028 season for both Kyle Walters and Mike O'Shea. And these guys got a lot of work to do, a lot more than, frankly, the last few years, I think, considering how good and competitive the West is and where they finished up this year. which was not in their goal playing in the game in their home stadium. So Jeff Hamilton coming up in just a minute. First up, let's go some big thanks to some great sponsors, including our friends at Uptown Alley. And then Hammer will join the program. Hey, folks, looking for something fun to do on the weekend? Listen, when you're thinking fun for both the family, groups of people of all ages, Uptown Alley is the spot. If you haven't checked out their amazing new facility at 1301 St. Matthews, what are you waiting for? An absolutely amazing facility with 5-pin bowling, 10-pin bowling, laser tag, an amazing arcade, games with great prizes, not to mention incredible food and all sorts of beverages, whatever you'd like to accompany with you on the lanes or while you're having fun. They've got a great daily deal right now. After 9 p.m., it's the Bowl and Play special where you get 90 minutes of bowling and a $10 arcade card for $20.49 for 5-pin, $22.49 for 10-pin. And of course, it's an unbelievable spot for birthday parties for both kids, teens, or adults. An amazing group and corporate events with 3 easy steps to an amazing event. Pick your activities, your meal, your add-ons. And after that, the events team will take care of everything and you'll have an amazing night. Tonight and anytime, Uptown Alley waiting for you. Get together with the gang and have a blast at Uptown Alley. UptownAlley.ca for more information on group events. And of course, open 7 days a week. Our friends at Rolly's Transfer are ready to help you and your family on your next move. It's a stressful time. If you need a mover, why don't you do what Manitobans have been doing for over 60 years? That's leaning on the most trusted name in the game, Rolly's Transfer. Head on over to their website at rollys.com, hit on request an estimate, and put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. Let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to be moved, and the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they are famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, lean on our friends at Rolly's. Find out more, request an estimate today at rollys.com. I see Dr. Terry's in the chat today. Our friends at St. Vital Dental Center, ready for a little marbles fun and a big weekend coming up. Listen, if you need your smile worked out or if it's been a minute since you've seen a dentist, why don't you head on over to St. Vital Dental Center? They've been serving generations of Manitobans and have a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's Road with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building. A full array of dental services, from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants. Dr. Terry and his staff can do it all with a smile on their face to help the smile on yours. StVitalDental.ca for more information. Make an appointment and make it your long-term home for you and your family with a great group of people taking care of your smile. And hey, the weekend is here, gang. I know many of you are going to be popping by your local Manitoba liquor marts ahead of Grey Cup week next week. Make sure to check out the Canadian Club display for 2 things. Number 1, limited quantities remain of the Winnipeg Blue Bomber Special Edition Bomber Label bottle of Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Canada's iconic Canadian whiskey. And in addition, with the holidays coming up right now, for a limited time, we've got the cranberry ginger ale with Canadian Club. We know how popular the CC and ginger's been over the last couple of years. Well, just in time for the holidays, it's CC cranberry and ginger ale in 4-packs and in 473 milliliter cans. You can get those at Manitoba Liquor Marts or keep your eyes out for it at your local vendor. Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Bombers, the Grey Cup festivities, and the holidays. Yes, now we're done the holidays, or done Grey Cup, and we move into the holidays. Special shout out to my pal James from Canadian Club. They were a huge supporter of the event. Saw them down at the convention center quite often. Spent the second half with them in their loge yesterday, and just another one of the many people. It's not surprising. A lot of the people that really, support Winnipeg, the Princess Autos, the Canadian clubs with Winnipeg Sports Talk, also doing big things for the Grey Cup. All right, as I mentioned, Ken's coming up. We've got Scott Arneal. Connor was at practice today, so we'll be diving into the Jet stuff. But let's kind of wrap the Grey Cup and talk about the big Bomber news with the man himself, Jeff Hamilton. Hammer, First off, it was great to see you on the weekend, both Saturday and at the game. Before we talk about the game, I mean, you've been to a lot of these. Listen, I said it earlier on. The feedback I got, like, I was really impressed with everything. I thought it was brilliantly planned and executed. But the proof is sort of in what your guests say. And I got to tell you, almost unanimously from people that have been to a bunch of Grey Cups saying this was one of the truly great ones that we've had. The week was so good. It frankly raised the bar quite a bit for the game yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the case, Huss. The Grey Cup, unlike the Super Bowl, really is all about the days leading into the game. Of course, the game's important, and you build up to the game in those days leading up to kickoff. But it's a lot of work, right? And it's a lot of planning. We know with the newish now process with the CFL, where it used to be you just kind of whoever's turn it was, whoever was in line to get it, whoever maybe bought a team that year or needed a good boost to the bottom line would get the game, and it really wasn't really incentivized to do much about it, right? He was like, okay, you get the opportunity, you're gonna get a wave of revenue, try to put on a good time, but it was more about a profit. Well, in the last few years, it's all been about the bidding process. So each year, really, since I think it's 2021 that's just happened. Really, it's since post-COVID. The hosting city has just tried to one up the last one. In this case, in Winnipeg, obviously BC was in Vancouver last year. Wade Miller wasn't going to be outdone by anybody, and so of course he put his power in behind this and his team, and Rian Marcoux, who is the face of this operation. In all honesty, her team has just executed it brilliantly, right? I mean, it's so many things involved. And as somebody who's the president of Football Reporters of Canada, like I'd say I was busier doing those kind of things, helping with the league, putting out fires where they needed to be. It's just like things pop up all over the place. For instance, the water main break or whatever happened in the stadium that one day that led to an evacuation, right? It wouldn't be a CFL if there wasn't just a hiccup somewhere along the line. But, as far as execution and bringing I think the biggest thing about the Grey Cup, Huss, and I'll wrap it up, my rant here on this is that you want to be able to know you're in the city that's having the Grey Cup, right? You don't want it to be just one or two blocks, in an otherwise bigger city. You want it to have that feel, and whether it was getting off in the airport or different parts of the city, including downtown, south of the city, obviously where the campuses are, and then kind of dotted throughout the city with hotels being packed, you could really feel the vibe of the Grey Cup. So final thing on that is, the league I thought did a great job, and all the volunteers. Like I said, it's a lot of work. And there's a lot of people involved that don't get paid that are around helping out. So kudos to everybody. It went off without a hitch. And as you said, kind of set the stage for a great game on Sunday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I'll say that, we talk about the Rians and the Wades and the committee. I talked to a ton of people that are WST listeners that were saying hi, that were volunteering down at the convention center on the weekend. And, it was a really proud week for Winnipeg, I think, and there's a lot of people that had their hands in that. So congratulations to all of them. I guess just before we dive into what I think most of us are interested in, just the entire O'Shea saga and story and back, let's quickly hit on the game. I mean, I got to tell you, dude. Now listen, I had an Alouettes ticket. I was not hoping that we would see the Riders celebrating on Princess Auto Stadium. But honestly, I wanted to have a great game. In the end, I felt really happy for the Riders and their fans. That championship means something there, and it means something to them. And you saw that, and you saw it all around downtown last night afterwards. So it was great. But I will say this, that team was leaking oil big time in the fourth quarter. And were it not for a play that we see far too often, in my opinion, in the CFL, the boring QB sneak on short yardage that blew up in Montreal's face, I'm not sure that we're not having a very different conversation about the game. How did you see the 112th Grey Cup from your vantage point?
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same there, Huss. I would say I was in the stands, as you know. I was with my twin brother. We were taking in the game. I hadn't done that in years. That was a really cool opportunity. I thought the overall game production was great. Just in general, like how they kind of moved things along and in the entertainment value, I thought was top notch. As far as the game goes, Huss, yeah, it kind of turned into a bit of a choke fest near the end. Like who was gonna kind of separate themselves, and nobody was really doing that. Whether it was Shea Paterson fumbling the ball on the goal line that would have put Montreal in just an incredible situation, or it was to tie the game, or it was Brett Lauther who came back and shanked a 39-yard field goal. Right? I mean, imagine that situation for him. Rather than him celebrating, there's a great picture around. I've seen a bunch with his young family. It could have been despair again if Alexander could have got the job done. So, I thought it was. I was looking at Alexander all game and wondering about his health, and I thought he played well. I like that he was trying to push the ball down the field early and often. But by the end of it, I didn't know what the deal was with his hamstring. I'm going to ask you this. I know it's a little off topic, but it's game related for sure. Did you think he was performative in the hamstring by the end? Because it was like he was kind of limping back to the huddle, and then it was just like boom, and he was like able to work around and stuff. I thought it was a bit performative. I don't know if that's
put it this way,
hot take or not.
I didn't really notice much throughout the game. Other than, the first pick that he threw was I don't know whether it was just a brutal decision or whether that hamstring wasn't giving him enough juice on his balls, and that's why it was underthrown to a guy that it didn't even seem like he saw him there. But, in after the thing, they get the ball back with a minute left, and he does that run out to the sideline. It seemed like at that point he really hurt it. And then he was sort of hobbling back in. And listen, he made a couple plays, like that play on the third down to Stevie Scott, where he obviously was not at even close to 100%, was a pretty ballsy play just to keep yourself alive for one more chance to do it. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know whether it was performative or just it got a lot worse on that play, but it was a hell of a lot more noticeable in the final minute than it was at any other time. But I kind of think that happened when he ran over onto the sidelines. But, the problem is, listen, we can talk about Davis Alexander. Listen, they lost this game, and it's so cliche, but it always comes down to turnovers. And there's one that we'll always remember that'll be a legendary one. That was the fumble. But there was a couple of other chances that they had, to get points that they did turn over. And listen, this is why Saskatchewan is the Grey Cup champs right now. They were able to take care of the football, and Trevor Harris, as he's done all season long, was a completion machine. And, and then their defense came up big when they needed it, much like they did when they were, there's a lot of similarities against the game against BC in that they were up and then they weren't. In this one, they didn't lose their lead, but they basically had lost it. They were on the 1 yard line up by 8 points, and they did it. So full credit to them for doing it. But man, I'm sure that was a really tough scene in the Montreal dressing room afterwards, knowing how close they were to coming back far earlier than the last play in the game and basically sort of blew it.
Yeah, I to hear Jason Moss say it after the game, right, head coach of the Montreal Alouettes, talking about how they had that belief right to the very end, and you kind of had that feeling, even with the Hail Mary opportunity down, like you're kind of sitting there holding your breath, like, is this going to happen right now? And to fall short, obviously, this is a team who has high expectations, right? They were they made it to 2 Grey Cups in the last 3 years, and the Grey Cup they didn't is because they were so good that year. They didn't know how to work their schedule, right? Like it was like Montreal is a team to reckon with, and they're a team that's going to fight out of the East for several years to come here. The Saskatchewan Roughriders needed this, man. Like they needed this. Like the fan base needed this. We're led to believe this is Canada's team. We know the passion that Rider fans have for their football team, and we see it across the world. For whatever reason, there's always a Saskatchewan Roughriders hat or T-shirt at the most bizarre events.
Everyone
around the world, right?
Wimbledon final. Oh, we know there's the guy in the Rider shirt.
Right, but they've taken their licks over the last few years, and they haven't been able to fill out stadiums, and they've been the losers to their prairie rival Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who had been the class of the CFL, right? So they had to deal with all that abuse, right? Like the Bomber fans went from kind of the laughing stocks to the bullies on the playground, and the one they like to pick on the most were the Rough Riders. So for the Riders to come into Winnipeg, snap their drought dating back to 2013 when they won on home soil. Like, what's the second best place to win for them? It's probably in Winnipeg. And so, it's good for that fan base. Hopefully it galvanizes them. Hopefully it, motivates them to, just, again, return to that health, right? Because I do think they've taken some dings and, good for them. I think, you saw a lot of people show up to Winnipeg for the game once they saw the Riders get in. And there was it felt like a 50-50 split to me, but there were so many Rough Rider fans there. And while it's probably tough, it's a tough pill to swallow for many people in this province and fans of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, at the same time, this is a new champ. It was getting kind of boring, and now you got to knock the Riders off the top of the hill, and that's the new challenge for Winnipeg.
Well, let's get to Winnipeg now, because I know there's some people going, I can't handle all this Rider talk. Hey, they won in our stadium, so I mean, we couldn't gloss over that. But Jeff, all last week we were talking about on CFL 110 on Friday. I mean, this Mike O'Shea saga, which was really strange. Saskatchewan Sports Talk. T-Will, take your time about Remo. This was a story that was everywhere, and I know they don't like breaking news during the Grey Cup, but it almost seemed like for the sake of the weekend, that when this thing got done on Friday, just to let everyone know, okay, it's done. We got a game to play on Sunday. And then today, the Bombers kind of officially announced 3-year extensions for both Kyle Walters and Mike O'Shea. Safe to say, this was not the same negotiation that seemingly had happened before with these individuals. Take us through the last week of the dalliances with Toronto. Things kind of, from what I'm hearing, going really quiet between both sides for a few days, and then Friday, before everyone rolled into touchdown Manitoba, nothing to worry about. O'Shea's back, and so was Walters.
Huss, I'm trying to pull pieces out of this timeline here and to find out what's significant. You mentioned, the visit to Toronto. That ruffled a lot of feathers with the fan base. I know it shocked a few people within the organization who maybe didn't think he would take it to that step. But the thing that sticks out to me now and is obviously the signing of this. As you mentioned, the team was quick to put it up online and say that it's been done for at least 2026. I do think they were working for negotiations. I do think it was I don't want to say the Bombers wanted to give them 2 years and they end up getting their usual 3, but I think that was part of the conversation. At the same time, Huss, I think the thing that sticks out to me is that it's all now done right now. It's done in November. It's the day after the Grey Cup. The Bombers have figured this out. In Mike O'Shea's typical negotiations, he usually takes a while. He's doing, the aftermath of the season right now, and then they'll talk about it. We're not doing a mid-November announcement for his extension, right? Unless they're trying to build news. So to me, it was I think Mike wanted to get the deal done in Winnipeg. I think he felt that he didn't have that leverage before, and I think he took the savvy move of going to listen to other people. Here's the other thing, Huss, which I thought was kind of, like I mentioned, a lot of fans were disappointed, if you will, that he went to Toronto. And again, there were people within the Bombers organization who I think the concern or fear of him leaving, whether they wanted him to stay or were open to maybe him leaving, got more real when he went to Toronto. I think Mike went to Toronto because if you're the kind of person who's in that situation, you owe it to yourself. It's a disservice not to see what your value is, and especially if you have the connection that Mike O'Shea has to Toronto. So I saw it as a little bit of gamesmanship perhaps, or savviness off Mike's side, because he got home and he was never going to sign a contract within 2 days in Toronto. And the fact that he came home to Winnipeg and they had already had a deal done and needing to, let people know and end all this drama tells me that he never wanted to leave in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I had no inside information, but I mean, the last number of weeks, I was stunned that he went to Toronto personally. I was stunned that he would even consider going to what I kind of think right now is, I said last week, kind of a second-tier team in the league, especially next season with all these extra road games that they've just chosen to play as opposed to doing what BC's doing and moving it around in BC and exposing themselves and trying to grow their brand elsewhere. And I think it says a lot about where that team is that Ryan Dinwiddie left in the fashion that he did. So I was always on I'll believe it when I'll see it. But I will be the first one to admit, I mean, I was kind of spooked at just to how real it got last week and what we were hearing from people in the Bomber organization that were sort of the same way going, actually, I'm with you. I would have thought that this wouldn't have even been a conversation point. And guess what? It is right now. So they got it done. Was there a turning point that you've heard of? Like, I mean, was there a come to Jesus moment where they came back going, go, what are we doing? We're going to leave this and everything that we built here? Or was there like a key part that needed to happen to get Mike in particular, but also Kyle to be back and keep this thing moving forward and try to get back to the level of success that they have really established over the last years up until this disappointing season?
I don't know if there was a moment, Huss, but I think, I'm fairly confident suggesting it's like careful what you wish for situation. Like, who are you going to go replace? Not bringing Bobby Dice to be the head coach in Winnipeg. You just got dumped by the worst team in the CFL, right? Like, who are the other available voices? You're going to be forced into a situation where you have to hire Jordan Younger. I'm not saying you wouldn't want to hire Jordan Younger, but you probably hire Jordan Younger because you don't want him to leave with Mike and then take your players. And so what's the difference there? Does Kyle come back? Is that the right mix? Is that who, Kyle's guy? And to me, I think it was pretty simple, Huss. Things have gone pretty well from the dollars and cents perspective for Wade Miller. And I don't think Wade is in the business of rocking the boat or asking questions, right? Like, this team sells out year to year to year. I don't know if he's wanting to have any kind of wrench thrown in to an otherwise seemingly smooth operation from the outside looking in, right? So to all of a sudden lose, your head coach, why is that? Also Wade doesn't like losing. That's a big thing I imagine in this piece. But I will say this: I think it's an interesting situation. It's a great business decision, like I said. But I don't know if the circumstances around it are similar to previous ones. I think while the contract remains the same as far as length, I'm curious what the leash will be, because I know there was a lot of people upset last year, with obviously the results and Winnipeg, being eliminated and having to be the crossover team and then being eliminated in that first Eastern Division round. And then obviously the play of the offense, right? We've been pretty open about this. What's the future of Jason Hogan and the frustration with the players and the division between those two sides? And the biggest issue in that, Haas, is Mike didn't do anything about it during the season.
Well, that was going to be my next question. What's up with Jason Hogan in the offense? I mean, do you imagine that continues, or is that still up for review?
It's hard to say one way or the other, Huss, because we know how loyal Mike O'Shea is, and we know how difficult it is for him to, I don't know, demote somebody, right? Like, I mean, if I had to use experience here, Huss, as far as what I've seen from Mike in the decade that I've covered him, my guess would be is Jason Hogan would stay on the staff, be like an offensive assistant, and then maybe a Jarius Jackson would come in. Like, I don't think he would take another flyer on an inexperienced OC to be ahead of Jason Hogan, but I don't see him firing Jason Hogan, because if you fire Jason Hogan, his career from that level, like, he probably doesn't make it back to the OC. And so I just see Mike having a hard time doing that. But again, Mike had a hard time addressing it during the season. So, you asked the question, like, what's the ripple effect going to be? Well, I think it's going to determine. I think Mike has a big say in how that's going to be, because Mike has a big say in the roster. And if guys have a problem with that, maybe there's a message to be delivered. But, at the same time, something's got to give here, right? Like, Winnipeg is an older group, an aging veteran group. You look at the garbage bag day and you hear, things like Zach, who I, personally think has a ton in the tank left, might leave for TSN. He's been doing a pretty good job on the panel and whatnot. But, it will depend on what they want. And the thing is there probably is major change coming to Winnipeg. Like, while it's great to, hear those guys say they want all the guys back, like, I don't think it's going to work. And you can't always have all those guys back. So it'll be interesting to see what the turnover is here and what Mike's vision is, because now Mike has the confidence in the organization to put forth a vision with Kyle Walters and try to maybe iron out some of the dramatic stuff, right? Like I think like none of this stuff to me is necessarily like permanent damage. It's just it needs to be ironed out, and I guess roles and situations need to be figured out. So at the end of the day, there's some drama here, there's some infighting, but it's this team's is like a family, and they're going to fight like a family sometimes.
Well, and the thing is, at the end of the day, I mean, I know there's definitely a level of loyalty, but it is also professional sports. It's a lot easier to be loyal to guys when you're in the Grey Cup every year, and you can look at one player or two and go back, well, we're pretty good. They weren't good enough this year. They were fortunate to be 10-8. Trey Vavel won 2 awards. If that guy doesn't show up and do what he did this year, this team might not have made the playoffs. And it was just so far off of what we've been used to. And frankly, as a Bomber fan, yeah, we've been spoiled for sure. But this group has set a bar that is incredibly high, and they weren't close to it this year for pretty much the entire season. And, listen, the coaching and the offense is going to be a big, big topic. I don't think there's any doubt. And I would think that they probably would maybe be in their best interest to change or look something else. But to me, Jeff, as we get into CFL free agency, to me, the biggest job before we get to talking about what plays they're calling is the personnel. I think the loss of Ted Govaya was significant last year. You can maybe update us. We've heard a lot that Danny McManus might be gone. Those were the right-hand men of Kyle Walters as they built the athletes on this team that went to 5 straight Grey Cups and won 2 of them. To me, there is a ton of work to reshape and overhaul this roster. And obviously, O'Shea is going to have a huge say in that. Kyle Walters will be there. But I do wonder who else is going to be part of that. Is Danny going to be there? And just your thoughts on how much more work they have to do player personnel-wise this year than they really have winning the West year after year after year before this season.
Yeah, they do. I mean, again, like some of their wounds are self-inflicted, right? With their hirings, particularly on the offensive staff. I mean, I think they have the talent, Huss, right? And I do think that the leadership is there. It's just it's tough decision-making time, and it was always going to be this way, right? Like guys, a lot of these guys have been here for 6, 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 years. Jake Thomas more than that, right? Like how long can you stay on one team and perform and to your point, maintain that high standard that you set for yourself in an era where you were younger and stronger and better. Like, and so, and it kind of makes me, it's a little off track, but it kind of makes me think about this year and not necessarily spending to that new cap and not investing in totally for a year where you were hosting the Grey Cup. Like the fact of the matter is, Huss, the worst case scenario happened. A year that you were hosting the Cup, the Rough Riders come in and they win it on your field. Like that's the worst case scenario. So I think, from a player personnel stuff, yeah, there's lots of questions to come up with, right? There's the questions around quarterback depth. There's questions around the offensive line. I think the defense under Jordan Younger's leadership, and by sounds of it, unless he for some reason gets the job in Toronto, which I'm sure he might be a potential candidate for, he lives out there too. He's running the defense well, assuming he stays. They're in good shape there. I just think they got to get this offense going, like, and whether it's and figure out whether it's all on Jason Hogan and his inability to game plan and put the guys in good enough situations to be successful, or if maybe more blame needs to be placed on the players who aren't executing to the same degree anymore and aren't playing at that level that they had played at for so many years, just due to strictly to age. So I think it's got to be a whole top-down assessment here, and perhaps certainly with Kyle Walters and Mike O'Shea's 3-year extensions, they are the present and the future right now. So that's their job. They're supposed to get in. They're supposed to identify the strengths and weaknesses, and it starts with fixing their offense. Everyone knows, including them, that the offense was a disaster. So what this team might have looked like if the offense was improved, given the fact that they were 10-8 and relied so heavily on a guy playing special teams, like if that offense could have got the job done or been at least a little bit more consistent, I think you're looking at a team that could have done a lot more damage this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I think there's a lot on the shoulders of Zach going in. I mean, I'm hoping, it's so funny to hear guys like, well, he sure looked good on the TSN panel. coming off a really down season later on in his career. Sound familiar? That's what we were talking about Bo Levi Mitchell 3 years ago. And then Bo goes to Hamilton and completely revives his career and, was basically in the MLP conversation the last couple seasons. So we hope that could be the case for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But obviously the succession plan, who's the number 2 quarterback? Do you have a young guy who's going to take over afterwards? And can Zach continue to play at a level that we saw in previous years? Because as much as we love him and he's a Bomber legend forever, more often than not, I don't think he was close to where he was before. And I think there were some big questions about that. So it's going to be fascinating next number of weeks as we get closer into free agency. And tell you what, the Bomber conversations around on this program the last couple seasons has been more like, okay, are they re-signing this guy? Are they re-signing this guy? I think we might see the Bombers kind of dip their toes into some of the other waters of some of the more impact players this year, and we could see some more turnover, or significantly more turnover than we have in really any time since this team went to the 2019 Grey Cup.
Yeah, that's what, you can't just do it all over again. Maybe you can bring back a lot of the players that you like. This roster does look different than 2-3 years ago, but there are tough decisions to be made at key positions with guys who have been around for a while. And, whether they'll be willing to put in that grueling off season to be ready to play another 21-week season, and playoffs like that's yet to be seen. But we'll see here. You make these decisions every year. The Bombers are no different than every other team as far as expiring contracts. And now the 2 guys who have the most job security are now in charge of fixing this issue and making sure that it's better. It's going to be a lot of conversations. Again, I think it's going to take a while here over the next weeks and months to really come to really a decision on how they want to approach the offense, right? Because those the issues are massive, and they're at the top, and they sprinkle throughout the staff and into the players, and everybody needs to hold a level of accountability and work together to get this done. It will just be interesting to see how many of them will be back to be part of that process as the Bombers try to get back to the Grey Cup in 2026.
Hey, great job on your end with everything with the FRC. I knew, talking to a lot of the media, some that were our VIP event and others that were at the game, said it was first class. So a lot of people that pulled their weight, but I know you did as well. And just on a personal note, hell of a time on the weekend, and looking forward to doing it again, albeit next year in Calgary, where we don't have the hosting responsibilities. Take it easy. I know we're going to have a lot of very interesting conversations on this Bombers off season coming up real soon.
Yeah, it was really cool to have everybody here in Winnipeg, and like we talked off the top, a lot of people put a lot of work in to make it the event that it was, and it was an honor to host that many people here. Give a shout out to Kenny. Miss him. We're going to see each other this week too. Have a good hit, and we'll talk later.
I know we would have loved to have seen Kenny on Saturday, but he of course was busy watching the Jets squeeze 2 points out of Calgary. We're going to talk about that coming up right away. Connor will pop by with post-practice today as well. Hammer, you have a good one. Hey, a quick thanks to our friends at Princess Auto, WST sponsors, and then Jets Talk with Wiebe next on WST. Of course, Princess Auto Stadium, as we mentioned, the home of the Bombers and the home of the Grey Cup. Princess Auto, as we welcome everyone to Winnipeg. Princess Auto, synonymous with Winnipeg. Founded and headquartered right here in the Peg, and now coast to coast, but with 3 Manitoba locations to serve you, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new waiting for you at Princess Auto right now. Pop by and see them in store today, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. I had a little bit of the white stuff last night, and while that might freak out a lot of people, who it's not freaking out? Terminator and our friends out in Gimli at Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba's Power Sports Superstore. They are ready to go right now to get going with the snow and with snowmobile season. And ahead of the season, they've got amazing deals on right now on Polaris and Arctic Cat sleds before the snow creeps in. But of course, they've got so much more than snowmobiles there. ATVs, side-by-sides, personal transportation. We've got the Argo, the Suzuki and Roxor Evolution golf carts, boats and outboards, RVs and fish houses for the upcoming ice fishing season, and so much more in gear and accessories, and the best selection of parts in the province. If you got to fix your sled or something coming up for the season, the amazing staff at Chuds with more than 140 years experience will be happy to take care of you, as they've been doing for generations here in Manitoba, over 80 years in the business. Up in Gimli, the leaders when it comes to power sports, Chuds Power Sports, corner of Highway 8 and 231 in Gimli, online at chudspowersports.com. We'll get to the NFL Power Poll a little later on when Hacksaw joins us on the show. All our Power Polls brought to you by our friends at Chuds Power Sports. And hey, before we bring in Brandon Rowicki, speaking of that winter, make sure your car is ready to go. More importantly, your battery, because if the battery don't go, the car don't go. Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are your local option for the best in price and service for batteries for literally everything. And of course, as Donnie always says, don't overpay at the big box stores. Beat the freeze before it beats you. Free battery testing right now. Sale on booster cables and booster packs. And the best prices in town, period, on batteries, beating the pants off those big box stores. So get on down to Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive. Get your battery tested if you need it. And if you do need a new battery, make sure you're shopping local, supporting local, and saving money at the same time with Manitoba Battery, 2 Winnipeg locations. And of course, you can shop online as well at manitobabattery.com. All right, we're done talking Riders. Obviously, the Bomber conversation will continue throughout the offseason, but let's get back to our focus now. Moving forward, the Winnipeg Jets are back. Got 2 points on Saturday, which was mandatory. It did take a shootout, a beautiful goal by Gabriel Villar to get it done. But back at home for 3 big games this week. Let's welcome in Ken Wiebe, who put a few miles on over this last little week. Toronto to Van to Seattle to Van to Calgary. Finally back. Welcome home, Ken. It was an unfortunate week to be away because it was an incredible week in and around the city for the Grey Cup. But you had to do what you had to do, covering the Jets on the road for the Winnipeg Free Press. And not the road trip that I think everyone was hoping for, but as I said, got the 2 points at the end. But welcome. How are you? Are you settled back in at home for at least a week?
Yes, sir, Andrew. Great to be with you as always. It was a warm welcome back. Thank you for sure. So the East-West connection, it was a bit of a grind at times for sure. I actually also drove from, as you know, from being on the segment, drove from Van to Seattle and back after the game, but that was entertaining as well. Yeah, some fun. I mean, it wasn't to say it wasn't Jets template hockey, but they were showing some signs of themselves. And sorry, just to tie a bow on it, for everything that I've heard from folks who attended, who are either from here or from elsewhere, it sounds like a job well done by the folks on all kinds of fronts, including Hammer on the welcoming committee on the media side. Great to see my former colleagues Paul Friesen and Judy Owen be inducted into the media wing of the CFL Hall of Fame as well, and great for them, and great game. I watched it at Stacy's Sisters, and yeah, it was good. I would have been in attendance, mostly Huss, but normally, but
You're soft.
Yeah, a little. No, the weather was fine. The weather was fine. Yeah, it was the 5 a.m. wake up calls I had during the last week.
No, I hear you.
Getting
and you know
there.
what? I'm glad you brought that up. I actually meant to talk about that when we had Hammer on, because of course he's president of the FRC. But yeah, big congratulations to Freezer and Judy Owen for going into the Media Hall of Fame for the CFL. Greatly deserved by both of those two. And Freezer is still mixing it up this week as well. I mean, he's
Indeed.
still
Gloves are up. Gloves are up. I like it. And Huss, you know this, and some folks do, but not all the folks in the chat. I mean, Judy has been very influential for me, and for folks who don't know, I got my start at the Winnipeg Sun when Judy went on mat leave with her second child, I believe. So there's always
your
been
career you owe to her second child and their timing of pregnancy.
You are 100% right, Huss. Without Judy Owen's second mat leave, who knows where I would be? I mean, I had 19 and a half great years at the Sun, and yeah, like I said, I worked with Paul for a long time, and not afraid to just to write what he believes and to stand up for what he believes in. So
and stir it up as well, which is a big big part of it.
Mixing it up with Gaynor here, you gotta love that.
There it
Tremendous, just tremendous stuff.
Oh man, let's get to it. First off, game in Calgary. I think that of all of the games, I think this was one that a lot of people were maybe paying attention to the game a little more adjacently because they were in the middle of Grey Cup festivities and whatnot. It seemed like they had the lead in the third period. And was it 2:47 left? That Vlad Nemestikov kind of unfortunate high sticking penalty. Calgary gets it tied up, and then you're thinking, was this a game that the Jets needed to have? Is it something that you can build on, or is it just get the 2 points, get the hell off the road, get a day off, and then start back up and try and get back to where they need to be more consistently on home ice?
Yeah, I think it kind of matter of survival by the end of the road trip, Huss. And again, this is a solutions, not excuses network, Huss, as you know. But to be honest, the Jets played fine for the majority of that game. I didn't see this as a big blown lead. I mean, their power play got them the lead in the 80 seconds into the period from Cole Perfetti. The power play goal from the Flames sent it into overtime with 1:13. As you mentioned, unfortunate circumstance for Vlad Nemestikov, but I mean, offensive zone minor in the last 3 minutes. That's something they got to avoid, at all costs, generally speaking. But again, Vlad Nemestikov was not trying to high stick Matthew Coronado. He lost control of the stick and it clipped him. So it wasn't like it was some big, massive breakdown by the penalty kill. It was a great screen by Adam Klapka. Rasmus Andersson found the lane, and lo and behold, there's Coronado banging the puck in for the game tire. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't the Jets' best effort, but again, it was pretty evident to us that the gas tank was flittering on E and maybe beyond for a good chunk of that game. But I thought structurally they were a lot better in a lot of areas. Offensively, they probably could have generated a little bit more against Dustin Wolf. Wolf played fine, no doubt about it. But yeah, I mean, that was sort of a, survival of the fittest, just get to the finish line, unplug, get recharged, have a 3-game homestand here. But yeah, I mean, they found a way. So there was some resiliency shown in, 2 to the 3 of the last, games. And again, Josh Morrissey, leader that he is, was quick to point out, hey, that's 2 wins in the last 3 for our group. So, which is accurate. So you can quickly erase the 4 out of 5 losing narrative by winning 2 out of 3. And I know folks are saying, Huss, this is the typical time. Oh, basement dweller, Flames are terrible. Huss, the Flames play hard. And that Jets team that Sharks team that made the Jets look slow on Thursday, Calgary ground them into the ground. They only gave up 17 shots against the high-flying Sharks. So this isn't an A plus B equals C scenario. Yes, Jets had trouble with the Sharks, but the Flames also, they've been playing a little bit better. Nothing worse for a last place team than to hear everyone say you should be selling all your players, embrace the tankathon for Gavin McKenna. So I think they're showing a lot of pride and resilience themselves in the last little while. I know I saw a bunch of tweets and texts and whatever else. Got to have it game, must win. There's no must wins in game 18, but the Jets are certainly feeling better about themselves, having come away with that extra bonus point.
Yeah, well,
again,
technically you're right.
Either.
You're right. I mean, is the season over if you lose to Calgary? No, but if you come back from that road trip 1-5 and finish it off by losing to the worst team in the NHL, there would be far more angst in and around in it.
Totally get it. And there should be when that happens, for sure. I get it.
Yeah, just your thoughts. I mean, you were obviously covering the entire trip, but, on the road trip for the back half. I mean, where, in your opinion, where were the Jets off over these last 6 games, and what needs to improve quickly as they get ready for a Columbus team that always makes you work for it, and then Carolina and Minnesota on the weekend before heading out east to play some good teams?
Yeah, it's a great test this week, Huss, on a lot of fronts, and we know that right now the standings are a little bizarro land. Everyone's kind of in it, it seems like, except maybe the Flames, if you will. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, there was a lot more good on the part of the trip that I saw than in the first 3 games. Now, the third period against Seattle, two bad breakdown or one bad breakdown, and then the power play goal against. That third period was not Jets hockey, but I mean, for the most part, they started to look a little or resemble themselves in a lot of ways. We know the top line had a couple rough goes on the road trip, outscored at 5-on-5 anyway. But at the same time, the Jets are in need of a little bit more secondary scoring. We saw it in Vancouver; it was prevalent there. But they need to do a better job overall of churning their lines. I mean, we talked about this. Adam Lowry's line has been absolutely fabulous on each of the last 3 games, I would say. Huss kind of driving the bus. I expect that, with getting the matchups at home in those 3 games, the top line is going to get back to maybe outproducing their level of competition, not just being even or being down 1 in the games. Having Dylan Samberg back, I thought is a massive development for the Jets here. Huss, this, not just for Samberg himself, for what he brings individually, but for what he brings to the pairing with Neil Pionk. I thought those two were much more stable as a pairing. Logan Stanley did what we talked about earlier, later in the week last week. He looked good on the third pairing, still played an assertive game. His consistency level continued to be, pretty high. So, the fact that the Lowry line is sort of stirring the drink again, Huss, that to me will lead to other things. And, Cole Perfetti exerted some frustration during this road trip. He gets an easy tap in against Calgary. I think that he and Jonathan Toews and Vlad Nemestikov have generated a lot of quality chances. There's been a little bit of overpassing on that line at times. I just think it's a mentality, Huss. We've talked about this. Cole needs to be the shooter on that line. Yes, he can still be a distributor, but he needs to be the trigger man on that line with the Jonathan Toews and Vlad Nemestikov. I know there's been a lot of debate about a lot of things. I think the Jets are going to get back home here. They got 3 stiff tests coming up. I mean, we know what it's going to mean for Nikolai Ehlers. I spoke with him last Sunday in Toronto after the game against the Leafs. He's incredibly excited to come back home to the place where he grew up as an individual and as a player. He's admitted it would be very emotional for him. That's a Carolina team that's, we talk about the Jets injuries. At one point, the Carolina Hurricanes are playing without 5 defensemen, Huss, and some of their better defensemen. So that'll be a fun test. Great week for the rural folks of Manitoba around Dominion City. Denton Matejchuk coming into town with the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think it'll be exciting for a lot of folks from the Eastman region. Denton and his brother have played some junior baseball in Altona for the Mighty Bisons. So I think there'll be a lot of folks excited to see him play. He's had a fun start to his season after making the all-rookie team after his call-up from the Cleveland Monsters last year. That game against the Wild, takes on way more significance than a week ago, with the Wild playing a lot better hockey and sort of knocking on the door. It's funny, Huss. We talked about it before that last game in Minnesota, how, Minnesota's had this bad start, and now look at them. They're knocking on the door, back in the Central here. So I think the Jets are trending upwards, but the level of competition is going to be getting higher, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. But I don't think that means the Jets are automatically going to have poor results. They've been a team that has gotten up for high level of competition, in a lot of ways. And I expect them to be a lot sharper here now that they're starting to get a little bit more continuity. And again, Morgan Barron is tracking towards returning. Scott O'Neill I think there's one more, green check mark to get. But once he gets back in the lineup, I think, the speed we've been talking about, the Jets are going to be starting to play faster, now that Samberg's there, Perfetti's there, Barron will be back. So, and Lowry, looking like himself.
When you say the Jets are trending up, is that like at the end of the road trip, even with the Seattle game, you thought that they're actually playing better and getting a little bit more closer to their structure? Like, I don't know. I
didn't like their third period, Huss. I mean, those breakdowns were not Jets-like structural. Eberle can't get wide open there. I mean, there was one other one where a guy was wide open. I just mean that now that their lineup is getting back to full health and looking more like they're into the game and integrated into those systems. And, again, I think that Barron was such a driver. Parker Ford's been doing a great job down the middle, but Barron brings an element of offense and power forward game that Parker Ford doesn't have at this stage of his career. I think Parker Ford's been excellent in the role that he's been asked to play. And he is a fast skater, but I think Morgan Barron just adds another layer. And especially with what he does on the penalty kill, I think that'll be a big boost for the Jets as well. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of road for them to increase us. But to me, I think these middle 20 games, we're going to learn a lot more about the Jets than maybe we learned in the first 20. That's just how I view it.
Yeah, let's I'll put it this way. I'm hoping for a trend up at home this week, starting tomorrow, and then those 2 big games on the weekend. But we're approaching the 20 game mark. I'll be honest, I've been really surprised at seeing some of the underlying numbers of Taves. I mean, maybe it's just because at the start, you didn't know what you were going to see. There were some games where he really looked good, like he still got it. Obviously, there's a lot he can bring to the table, but it's been a real work in progress on that line with, some results that, when you dig in, haven't been great. Where are you at on Taves coming out of this road trip as we approach 20 games and the look and effectiveness of that line is currently constructed?
Sure, Huss. I mean, I have zero concerns about where Jonathan Taves has got to or where he's going to be going. I think the game against Calgary is one of the best games he's played this year. He had 3 shots on net, 6 shot attempts, 71% in the circle. Now, I get it. They've been outscored at 5-on-5. Those are facts. I get it. People showing those numbers, they're accurate 100%. They don't concern me as much as they concern other people. Cole Perfetti has barely played any games with Taves, right? It's 4 games now with Taves. I think they could have easily outscored their level of competition to the number that they've been outscored to this point. So again, a lot of people want to say whatever they want to say. We talked about this going in, Huss. The first 20 games were probably going to be the hardest 20 games for Jonathan Taves. I think the more encouraging part is that his body is holding up over this taxing stretch. And again, of course, during this road trip, which was the longest of the year and, taxing in terms of Pacific time zone games, there were some, games where he did not look like he was at his peak, or maybe his skating was not at the level we had seen for a good chunk of that. I think Jonathan Taves just got past the hardest point of the schedule for the Jets in those 6 games. So I expect his, like I said, 19 to 41 to look, improved from the 0 to 18. But I don't mind what I've seen from him to this point. I think he is doing a nice job in terms of his hockey intelligence, and IQ has been on display throughout this whole time. I think his reads are becoming quicker. And again, any concerns about skating, I have not seen Jonathan Taves get out skated very often in any individual foot races. He's not having trouble with the down low responsibilities. Yes, there are times in the handoffs down low in the defensive zone where, he's thinking one thing and pointing to a line mate that's maybe not in, concert with what that person is thinking. But that's more a matter of playing a new system for the first time after being off for 2.5 years. So again, with one bounce the other day, I think, again, this is not about referees, that rebound chance he puts in the back door unless Dustin Wolf trips him, right? I mean, there's a play that's missed in front of the net. He is in the right spot. He was a little bit frustrated. Yes, he had a sharp angle chance against Wolf also that he stopped him on. But Huss, I have zero level of concern. I know Sean Reynolds, my cohabitator on the pod, he thinks he needs to up his game. And I understand for folks who think that that's the case. And again, I expect him to produce at a slightly higher rate as the season goes on, as someone who thought he could be in that, 50-point range. And I still don't think it's out of the question that he's, comfortably north of 40 and maybe even gets to 50 with a hot start or a hot finish in the middle and those things. But again, I don't see any concern. And again, I think he's a guy who's going to start. We knew this. First quarter would be the toughest. And for those wondering, he's not going to be able to handle the second line job. Well, Huss, we already saw it on Saturday night. Adam Lowry's minutes were higher than Taves's. So when Lowry is back, Jonathan Taves can take, a slightly lower role or responsibility in terms of ice time, but he can still play an important role. So for me, I have no concerns where his point totals are at. Those numbers will go up exponentially once Perfetti gets hot. Perfetti's got 2 points, Huss, so far. If Perfetti is going to be a 65 to 70 point player, like we thought he would be, and now again, I'm saying that's what we projected for him before the year, before missing 14 games or whatever it was. I expect those numbers are going to go higher as Perfetti starts to score at a higher rate, because I know we've praised Vlad Nemestikov for his great start, Huss. He has had a great start with 6 goals. He's also now gone 7 games without a point. So I think that those guys as a unit will start to show more cohesion, and then they're going to start chipping away at those numbers, Huss. Huss, to me, it reminds me of last year in the first 2 weeks where we were talking about, not we, but your chat room was saying you got to break up Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde because they've been outscored 12-3. And by the end of the year, they blew away the competition.
Yeah, no, it is a good point. I think, we'll, as we get to the quarter point of the season, kind of take a little bit of note about where you are, where things are going. But as I say, there's a lot of road left.
Sorry, just for the record, he needs to be better. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I don't think that I think the standard or expectation somehow changed here, Huss. We were talking about a guy who missed 2.5 years, and yes, he holds himself to a high standard. That didn't mean he was going to be a point-a-game player in the first quarter of the year after the time that he missed.
No doubt. As far as the blue line goes, actually, Remo, if you can, cue up number 8 here for a minute. And this just is Arnie from earlier today, talking about the return of Dylan Samberg. I want to get into how the defense group is going to look into these games, but here's what Arnie had to say about the return of the big guy on the back end.
Just being able to, because of every team having 2 real good lines, being able to head up, go head-to-head with one of the top 2 lines with P, and then you had, Mel and JMO against the other group. Being able to log those kind of big minutes, his size, his footwork, we've obviously the penalty kill is a big part of it, but at the end of the day, just him being able to log big minutes, it helps JMO's ice time to kind of, drop in the heavy category in that way. Just his all-around game, I think that each game he got better and better. I think that he's got some rust off him, and now he looks like he's more like the guy that we need.
Scott Arneal, Dylan Samberg back in, and obviously Ken, he has a huge presence on that line, and I think you kind of alluded to this earlier. Makes such a difference for Neil Pionk, who just seemed to be, more freed up. He made that beautiful pass to Mark Scheifele in, I believe that was the Seattle game.
Yep, for the breakaway.
Thoughts on just that pairing and the early returns on Dylan Samberg and just how different that Jet blue line is with him there and what that does to the third pairing?
Yeah, again, the Jets have spent way too much time in their own end so far this year, Huss. And again, it's not just a one-person deal, but when Samberg's in there, they're not spending as much time in their own in their own zone. So that's going to leave fewer opportunities for puck management issues or coverage issues that have plagued them to this point. So I think it's made a humongous difference. Dylan Samberg is a guy who's so exceptionally smart. His ability to read plays, kills plays because of his reads, strong on the stick, can clear the front of the net. His exit ability has, increased rapidly in the last 3 seasons. And also too, the other part is Pionk. Now, again, we've talked about this. Stanley has elevated his game exponentially this year with Neil Pionk, but I think that Pionk's game was not at the same, level it was at as we've seen over the last couple of years. And to your point, with Samberg, who is sort of that safety valve with Pionk, he's able to get more involved offensively. I also think he's able to get more involved physically because he knows where Samberg is going to be, and he knows that Samberg will see if he takes a jump in the play to make a hit or something like that. He knows that there's a safety valve there. That's not to say Samberg or Stanley couldn't have been one, but there's just a little bit more chemistry from all the time they've spent together. Dylan Samberg, I thought, looked excellent. I was slightly surprised he had 23 minutes in the first game, but that had more to do with the fact he was able to keep his legs fresh during his recovery because of the wrist issue. Now, it was a little bit awkward, as he admitted, not skating with a stick for part of that time, but it allowed him to put himself in a position to play 23 minutes plus in his return. Unlike normally, you'd probably be leaving him at like 18 minutes if he hadn't had those extra, weeks of skating without the stick or whatever. So to me, that's going to just be, it's just a massive trickle down, Huss. We saw this last year too, when Hayden Fleury and Logan Stanley got bumped up into the top 4 after the fractured foot, after he blocked the one-timer from Steven Stamkos. Not having Samberg is a big loss for this team. It's not snap your finger, Jets are back to themselves, but because of the things that he does so well, they will be spending less time in their own zone. And his ability to jump up in the play, again, the underrated part of his game, Huss, that we talked about last year and throughout the summer when we were wondering what the contract would look like, was the fact that he had a career-high 6 goals. He had 20 points, and that's 20 points in 60 games. So that's tracking to be a 30-plus point player or whatever, 28 or 32, whatever it ends up being on the mathematics side there. So to me, that's going to just allow everyone else to play the right number of minutes. It takes a little bit of stress off the top pairing in terms of the minutes they've had to play. And it takes, some stress off the third pairing, if you will, also. But the other part too, Husson, sorry, I don't want to shift gears, but while I'm talking about defense, Josh Morrissey is on an absolute rampage right now in terms of what he's been doing. 5-game point streak, 19 points in 18 games. Cale Makar is still the clubhouse leader in the Norris Trophy discussion. But right now, Josh is playing like the second best defenseman in the NHL. And that's something that I don't think should be overlooked at the responsibility he had to take on with Samberg being out for those first 16 games.
No, there's no doubt about it. Josh is feeling it right now and has been a big part of any success the Jets have had. I mean, Mark Scheifele was sort of the guy leading the way early on. I thought that he was off at the first part of this road trip. He's now scored in a couple straight. He had a goal, and he had 1-1 against Seattle in that loss. What in particular did you see kind of a bounce back from Mark in his play in these last couple of games? Certainly, they started to get a little bit more offensive success.
Yeah, I thought that they were doing a better job on a lot of fronts, Huss, and even in that game against Seattle, Scheifele had the goal, but the line wasn't particularly fluid in that game. And even though there was a big development with Kyle Connor finally scoring on the power play for the first time since December 23rd of 2024, he hadn't really touched the puck a lot in the game. And that's abnormal because Kyle's usually around it all the time. And again, it's not a knock on Kyle. It just that line seemed to be disjointed. They weren't getting any offensive flow going. They were getting nothing off the rush. They didn't have a lot of extended offensive zone shifts. So to me, that sort of is a little bit of an exhale for Connor. In terms of Mark's play, again, I'm not trying to pretend that I'm him, but, all the talk has been about Celebrini and Bedard and this and that. So he knows that he can't have many off nights given the razor thin margins for, who's going to be on the Olympic team. And again, Mark's primary concern is the Jets. I get it. But he also wants to be in that, situation. And the thing for me, Huss, after everyone's saying how, these guys, look at these other guys. Well, Mark still has 11 goals. Last I checked, I think Bedard and Celebrini were at 10. They might have got one on the weekend, but Mark is still right there with them. So it's not like these guys have blown Mark out of the water and suddenly he's been relegated to sideline duty here. So, but the important thing for Mark is that he needs a consistent level of hockey in two-way game and 200-foot game. That's going to be what gets him on the Olympic team. If he's able to, play well for these next 6 weeks before the team is named. I guess it's submitted on the 31st, named on the 1st. But yeah, it's a big week for Mark and, that line as a whole. I think, Gabe Velarde's got his hands going. Kyle Connor, I think, is, like I said, getting that power play goal means more to him than either he or Scott Arniel were, willing to say. Yes, he's become a great facilitator on the power play. But again, Cole Perfetti's goal comes right off another Kyle Connor one-timer. And we hadn't seen very many Kyle Connor one-timers before the game against Seattle and then the game against Calgary. So I think that's an important development for them as a line. But yeah, I expect Mark to be very dialed in this week.
Yeah, just for an update on where things stand league-wide, Macklin Celebrini's in third in NHL scoring behind McKinnon and McDavid. He's got 27 points, 10 goals. Bedard is fourth, 10 goals, 16 assists for 26 points. And then Scheifele is tied for 11th at 11, 13, and 24. So, they're all right there. An interesting guy that's actually tied with Scheifele, 11 goals, 13 assists, is John Tavares of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I have not heard Tavares' name mentioned once.
Well, it's been mentioned quite a bit from the folks in Toronto, Huss. On
all the Toronto, who's been mentioned a lot in Toronto? Gavin McKenna, because they're ready to blow it all up right now with the way the Leafs have played in the first quarter of the season.
Very fair. And again, having had eyes on Tavares in a live game in that game against Carolina, he's playing very well. He's in the discussion for sure. He's been a Hockey Canada guy, and I think he's definitely someone that's definitely played himself into the equation as well. And to be clear, I'm not knocking the starts for Bedard or Macklin Celebrini. They've been playing great. I expect Celebrini to be on the team, and Bedard can play his way onto the team in the next 6 weeks also. I just think it's funny that everyone is no, not everyone. There's so many people just saying they're automatic locks to be on the team. I mean, they're definitely in the equation, in the mix, and they've had exceptional starts. And I particularly applaud Bedard after having a tough year last year. He had a tough year last year. So I love the work that he put in the summer. He's definitely played himself into the equation. But remember, it's body of work. It's not just recency bias. Yes, who's playing the best right now will be a factor, but there's also a long stretch and a long body of work for Scheifele also. Not every game is a referendum on his status, but at the same time, Mark needs to play at an elite level to be on that team. There's no doubt about it. And he knows that.
I have, for the record, I have put a lock besides Celebrini's name. I think he's a lock for the roster, and I think he is going to be in that top 12, like playing in that first game. I just think he's got such a complete 200-foot game that they'll have to trust to it. He brings a lot to it. Bedard's a little different for me. I think if Bedard's on the team, he's probably in the 14-15 hole, potentially gets a game or two. If somebody gets hurt, can go out and play. And I think Scheifele,
as a winger.
Yeah, and I think Scheifele just ahead of him, but potentially could be in that similar situation. Hey, just before we go, a wise man called Connor Hellebuck to start these 3 games on the weekend, but he wasn't there today. It was Hutch out there. We're going to talk about that with Connor coming up. Do we foresee Eric Comrie tomorrow and then Hellebuck getting the Carolina game and the Minnesota game before the team hits the road again?
Yeah, Huss, I do expect Comrie, and again, I like I sent you a note. I think the original intent was probably to go Comrie, but after 1-4 and a little bit of wheels wobbling after a wonky third period against the Seattle Kraken, I think that the plan may have shifted. But I will give you the props on the cool bet line that you would hopefully cashed in on. I mean, Michael Hutchinson, I think, was just there for a fill-in special.
Is Hutch isn't playing now?
I assume he's going to still try to find something, but he wouldn't have been here if he's got a contract somewhere else. I don't think.
Is it next year that the full-time e-bug kicks in?
Yeah, there was some discussion today in press row here that he might not be a candidate because of the NHL experience. Now, again, I don't know what the final rules or if there actually is some things to still be sorted out on that front, but I mean, that'd be a pretty good player to have in your back pocket. Yeah, if you were the Winnipeg Jets for sure.
Yeah, Remis said
I don't know if he's eligible.
Doesn't think he's eligible.
And the other thing too, Huss, this is not a concern. Connor Hellebuck was just given a maintenance day today. He ended up speaking to some kids after the practice. No signs of anything other than a regularly scheduled rest for Connor Hellebuck. But yeah, I expect it to be Comrie, then to see Hellebuck against Ehlers and the Hurricanes.
Helly was out at the Grey Cup yesterday.
I saw that. Nice job. Good job. I think there were some other players there too, but good on him. Signed that long-term deal, wants to see what's going on in the city. Good for him.
Right on. All right. Well, Kenny, listen, looking forward to seeing you down at the rink. We got 3 big games this week for the Jets, starting tomorrow against Seabus. Thanks for doing this, and we'll see you down at the Canada Life Center.
Yeah, Huss, great to be with you as always. Have a great week ahead here, and I know you wanted to end the Rider discussion, but with Tavon Campbell forcing the fumble, a good U of R grad like myself here. So I will say, though, the Rams, at the time when I was playing college hockey, the Rams sort of saw themselves as sort of a little bit of a leg up on the rest of the athletes on campus. I think that's probably changed now, but regardless, U of R guy, as someone who graduated from there, I don't think we do stick taps for the CFL, but impressive job by a good Canadian kid who went to the U of R. We'll have to mention that. Sorry about that, Bomber fans.
Beat
it. Hey, be true to your school. Come on now.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good one. All right, there's Ken Wiebe. We're going to have some more Jets talk. Connor with a bit of a practice report. He was down at the rink today. We'll hear from some of Scott Arneal coming up. But first, a big thanks to our WST sponsors here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical. Your local leader for over 40 years in the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. As you know, they are captain approved, proud supporters of the Jets, and now the leading residential and commercial plumbing, heating, and electrical company in town. Now, while you might not be having a big commercial need for Clean Line services, you never know when you're going to need them. especially for plumbing mishaps. And that's why Cleanline, much like Adam Lowry has the back of the Jets, they've got your back 24/7, 365 with emergency service available. Find out more on all of Cleanline services online at cleanline.ca. We got a big one tonight and Sunday as well. Man, it's going to be a fun night. Maybe a great time to get together with your gang of Boston Pizza. See the Jets play a couple exciting young teams and take in the new flight club menu, I should say. Pizza flights, wing flights, chicken bite flights, and new fry flights available. And you'll have a chance to win Boston Pizza's grand prize trip for two to California to see the Jets play the Ducks February 27th, including flights, hotel, and amazing game tickets. Just speaking of BP, here's a little save the date for you WSTers. I believe it is Wednesday, December 17th. We're going to be doing a little holiday gathering / Jets watch party at Boston Pizza, just working on the exact location. But December 17th, St. Louis Blues, 7 o'clock game. Hopefully you'll join us at BP. And hey, if you are staying at home to watch the game, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com and get it hot and fresh to your door. Of course, many of you love the Olympic jerseys. Myself, not so much. I can tell you very soon they're going to be coming in at Royal Sports, because if it's a Jet jersey, if it's a Canada jersey, if it's Jays merch, Royal Sports is the place to get it all right here in Winnipeg. The biggest supply and stock of literally everything, which is a perfect time as we get ready for the holidays, whether you're looking for the Jet fan in your family, the Bomber fan, someone with an NFL team, a different NHL team. They've got it all at Royal Sports. You can take care of everyone on your list that's a sports fan in one spot. And of course, they're also the hockey superstore for over 50 years, with everything from full equipment to pucks, stick tape, skate sharpening as well. 750 Pembina Highway, Royal Sports. Follow them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Winnipeg, especially heading into the holidays for latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, just before we bring in Murat, it is Friday. I know Hacksaw wants a 1919. Let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, we will have Connor and Remo popping in here in a bit for some more Jets talk and to wrap the show. But I do want to rewind to Saturday night. We'll be talking about that game as we look ahead. Here's what Coach Arneal had to say about the shootout win over the Flames to finish up the road trip and get that second win in 6 away.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously this road trip hasn't gone the way we want to do, but just talk to the guys about, putting everything out there. And, if we got down in the game, we battled back. We got up in the game. Even when they came back, we just hung in there. Those late penalties, at the end of the game and then in overtime, just found a way. Found a way to keep ourselves in that hockey game. And, obviously came to a shootout. But I just liked we were resilient, and that was a little bit more of that urgency that we need.
Just wanting to see the power play come through early in the third to give your guys the lead.
Yeah, it's obviously the night started to click in Vancouver, and it's I mentioned that if we're good on our retrievals and our attacks, good things happen, and that was real quick. The puck movement was real sharp and quick, and then when we attacked, we had all the numbers there at their net. We had three guys right down in tight. So sometimes you're going to score the sort of the pretty looks, but other times you're going to get those ones. Fetz did a good job of finding that loose puck.
All right, so there's Scott Arneal. There's been plenty of talk about the just the defensive system and the coverage for the Winnipeg Jets. Most importantly, coming out of the Seattle game and the Eberle winner. Here's what Arnie had to say about the team's defensive structure finishing up the roadie.
Oh, way better, a lot better. They had some real good, especially in the second. I mean, they're a shot volume team, and there was a lot of tips, and they were trying to get sticks on pucks, and thought we did a good job of, when we could, not allowing them to get those sticks on it, but boxing out, not allowing the second and third chances. They got some looks. They were desperate, obviously, and but I just liked the way we hung with it. I didn't think we spent extended periods of time in our end of the rink like we maybe did earlier in this trip.
So there's Scott Arniel. We got a couple more from today, but let's bring in Connor Rabchak, our Jets reporter, the host of WST Sunday Live, who broke down Saturday's game with Liz yesterday on the channel. You can check that out if you haven't seen it already. Connor, what's up? Busy weekend. We had a lot of fun on Saturday. You guys were up early after the game on Sunday morning, and then you're in the stands for the game. How was your Grey Cup experience?
That last year Vancouver was my first ever Grey Cup experience, and when you travel for the Grey Cup, I feel it's different because you go and that's the only thing you're kind of doing in that city is you're I don't know why there's two of me here doubled up, but the only thing you're doing in that city is you're there for the Grey Cup. Where you're in Winnipeg, it's a little bit different, home Grey Cup. I loved it. I thought the convention center was a great venue. I thought everyone, the volunteers, everyone you've given a shout out to, Huss, absolutely nailed it. The vibe around downtown, not just at the convention center, but walking around just wherever you were in any restaurant or whatever was awesome. And then the game delivered. I mean, as a somewhat neutral fan, maybe a little bit more slided towards the Montreal Alouettes and cheering for them. But as a mostly neutral fan, I mean, I was just hoping for a game with some drama in the fourth quarter and a good game. And I thought we got that. And I liked MGK at halftime. And I thought it was a great event from start to finish, going all the way back to Thursday to last night's game.
The Riders were so close to blowing that in the fourth quarter.
I know.
I was giving them their flowers, but let's be real here. That was on the verge of a tragedy for Rider fans. And I mean, that play, the fumble on the goal line is the one that, we'll be talking about. Alouettes fans will be talking about for a long time, because lost in this, a comfortable 8-point win covering the spread. That was half a yard away from a 2-pointer to tie the game. And if that happened, all bets are off.
Yeah, 100%. And Haas, it got to a point there where they were up, 25-7, and it made it all the way to 25-17. Absolutely, they were in the middle of a massive choke job. And I was, my dad's cousin is a Riders fan, so I actually was sitting, close to a Riders fan that was stressing through that fourth quarter and the potential choke job and all of those things. So, I thought the game delivered with some drama. Alexander's hamstring tweaking on the final drive. I mean, how much time did we spend talking about hamstrings this week, Huss? And it came up at the biggest moment. I mean, this was a good game, and I would have liked to see overtime. If Shea Paterson scores on that short yardage, or they get closer and end up scoring and then get the 2-point convert to tie things, I wouldn't have minded a 25-25 OT Grey Cup like we've seen. The Bombers beat the Ticats a few years ago in overtime of the Grey Cup, so I wouldn't have minded to seeing overtime, but still a dramatic game. And the biggest win of the night, Huss, is that I went home and I could still feel all my toes, and it wasn't that cold. So I thought it was a great Sunday, Grey Cup weather. Like, it doesn't get much better than that.
Well, and Reem, you are obviously younger than me, older than Connor. Like, we've been to a couple of these other Grey Cups. Even 2015 was pretty darn cold. The fact that the weather was what it was, I think, made what was already going to be a phenomenal Grey Cup regardless, one that people will never forget. The street party, that outdoor social outside the convention center, was packed all Friday night, and then even Saturday throughout the day, and then it kept getting warmer for the game. Absolutely glorious when you think about what's possible around this place at this time of the year, for us to put our best foot forward and then be rewarded with some of the nicest weather we've had in a long time.
Yeah, having traveled for the last two, it was nice to not have to travel, but it was great that so many people were able to come here and experience the city, and they did such a great job with the convention center, with the stadium. It didn't feel like a regular Bomber game. Jeff mentioned this. It felt like a big production, a big event, and I thought it was very well done. And what they had, I was watching Grey Cup Saturday as well. U of W was taking over. They had stuff at the airport, as Jeff said. So pretty cool to have this be here this week. And yeah, the weather cooperated. We didn't have any like ridiculous snow or anything. You didn't have the field like ice like we've seen in past Grey Cups. And I do remember the Grey Cup here in 2015 where it was ridiculously cold, and moving the season or moving it up a week certainly helped, and they'll be moving it up even more in the future. But yeah, I mean, I got to my seat. I had to take my jacket off. I was wearing so many layers. I came prepared. I've been to a couple of these cold games. It's a badge of honor to attend a November game in Winnipeg, and I used all my tricks, and yeah, it was pretty solid game there.
You know, I'll ask the fellows, Westman, Tyson, Wayne Gretzky, all the kooks that are usually down in 141 right behind. Did they go tarps off at any point last night? I saw them at halftime, and they were trying to figure out how they would do that. That's normally a fourth quarter thing that they do. I'm not sure whether that would have been in support of Montreal. I don't think that they were really excited about the Riders winning. So I am understanding if that'll takes place. Let's get to the Jets, though, Connor. I mean, just before we get to today at practice, and I know probably a lot more extensively got into the road trip and Calgary game yesterday morning on WST Sunday Live. But what'd you think of the end to the road trip, which, of course, ended on a winning note? In my opinion, one that they absolutely had to have, regardless of what the hell happened in the Grey Cup. I did not want to be talking about a 1-5 road trip that finished with a loss to the worst team in the National Hockey League right now in the standings.
100% agree, Huss. And that's why I deemed it a can't lose. Kenny was on the program saying there's no must wins in November. He's right. It wasn't a must win. It was a can't lose. You
Perfect.
can't lose to end the road trip against the 32nd ranked team. So yeah, it was a can't lose, and they didn't lose. They snuck one out 4-3 in a shootout. Overtime. The Jets get scored on late with a kind of 6-on-4 scenario with a goal, that looked ugly. I mean, 6-on-4, but there's still two Flames players wide open in the crease to bang home the rebound. Overtime goes by, shootout goes by. Mark Scheifele gets tossed right before the shootout. That game had some drama as well. Great to see Dylan Samberg back, Huss, and pumping out great analytics, great 5-on-5 numbers already. Kenny talked about how he played over 23 minutes in his debut in the Seattle game. He's fully up and running. And I do think that, he had a broken foot last year. Having a broken wrist this year, the ability to keep skating with the broken wrist and keep that conditioning up is really going to help him hit the ground running. And I think we've already seen that. But yeah, Huss, the road trip in general, not enough offense generation at the start of it. They weren't scoring goals. Then they started scoring goals, and then the defensive breakdowns came. It just felt like some phase of their game was always off. And look, it's a 6-game road trip, Pacific swing, late games for us, at least the fans, at 9 p.m. every single night. I get it. It's early November, but now that they're home, now that these players are healthy, I'm expecting Morgan Barron to be back for tomorrow's game as well. That's not confirmed, but he did take part in line rushes today, so we'll see if he plays tomorrow night. They're healthy now. They're home. They're playing against Columbus at home. Then they get Carolina, which is a great test Friday night. Then they get Minnesota, who's 5-1-1 in their last 7 and playing better as of late. So really, really fascinated by this next kind of month and a half stretch coming up here, Huss, where they have Samberg, Taves and Perfetti can get some chemistry going. Adam Lowry, who's picked up right where he left off. He's played 6 games, hasn't been on the ice for a single 5-on-5 goal against yet. The Selke level defense is there from Lowry already. So I'm expecting to see better 5-on-5 numbers from the Jets moving forward. And I think they'll need to do that if they want to keep pace in the Central.
Yeah, just looking at this schedule coming up, 3 big games at home. You'd like to, be good at home. They've dropped a couple earlier on this season. Now they're 0-2 against Seattle. But, you got Columbus, who is no easy out. I mean, I know they've sucked in previous years, but ask the Edmonton Oilers, who just barely squeaked one out at home against them and then lost in Columbus last week. They're in tomorrow. Then, of course, we've got the Oilers return on Friday with the Carolina Hurricanes, one of the top teams in the league. That big Central Division game with Minnesota. Couple days off, and then 3 and 4 out east against the Capitals, who are playing some real good hockey, the Canes again, and the Nashville Predators, and then 2 more in Buffalo and Montreal. before coming back for 5 of their next 6 at home against against a number of opponents, but, including the Dallas Stars and the Washington Capitals and the Boston Bruins, who are first place right now in the Atlantic, which not a lot of people saw. Remo, if you can, let's cue up the 6 and 7 from today, just before we get to a little bit more about what happened on the ice. This is Arnie post-practice, just with a quick sort of wrap and his look back at the 6-game road trip that was.
Yeah, it was a long 2 weeks. Some inconsistency, especially early on. Played some better games, played some better periods near the end of it. Got 2 of 3 at the end. Probably should have got the one in Seattle as well. Get home, we're finally getting healthy. There was a lot of different rosters that went out each game, and to come home here, we're a lot closer now, maybe tomorrow night, to being where we need to be.
Right now, just before we play this next clip, clean line lines today from practice for our friends over at Clean Line, Winnipeg's leaders for over 40 years in plumbing, heating, and electrical, and the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. We're looking at Scheifele, Connor Velarde, Taves, Perfetti, and Metsnikov, Lowry with Nino and AI. And then the fourth line today, as Connor alluded to, Morgan Barron, who hasn't yet been cleared, so hasn't spoken to the media, in the middle of Tanner Pearson and Nyquist, which means Chibrikov, Lambert, Ford, and Koepke right now, if all healthy, seemingly not in the lineup, which means we got a very busy and packed roster right now. Here's Arnie on possible roster moves coming with the rest of the injured players getting back to full speed.
Yeah, obviously we got too many right now. We're going to have to make some calls here, talk to Chevy here and make some moves here. But we're not 100% in the sense of with Barron, with Koepke, with Fleury. They got one last sort of medical thing that they got a hoop to jump through. So until we get that 100%, then we'll kind of, we have to make a move once and say, I want to put those guys back on our roster.
Coach, on that, the Moose, by the way, they've won 4 in a row. Danny Zhilkin had a couple on the weekend. They're now third in the Central at 7-6-2. They lost 4 in a row. They bounced back with 4 in a row, and there's the possibility that they could be getting the likes of Lambert and Ford and Chibrikov back. Connor, I'm sure that was quite a bit of the talk amongst the media today at practice over just how they massage this roster and who has to go. And I think all signs point to some of the younger players that have had opportunities earlier on this season, but with everybody healthy, they're going to go with the lineup that they feel gives them the best chance to win.
For sure, Huss. And if you're one of the people that subscribes to the thought that the young players should be playing, not all kind of hope is lost with them going down. Scott O'Neill did talk today about how valuable it was for them to be up for these 18 games, and all of them playing, a somewhat equal amount actually in the games really helps as well. But yeah, Barron, Fleury, and Koepke all currently on IR. So all 3 of those players, presumably when those 3 veterans are coming back, all 3 of Lambert, Chibrikov, and Ford will go down at some point. They're all waivers exempt. They can pass through without anyone putting a claim on them. And look, Morgan Barron is a guy that I think the Jets have kind of sneakily missed, Huss. Maybe it's a bit of an underrated absence. He's going to come back on the 4th line, but that 4th line at times has been getting caved in at 5-on-5 and hasn't posted great metrics throughout this road trip. So I think Morgan Barron's a guy that can go out, take strong defensive faceoffs, be on the penalty kill, which has been very good so far this season, and add a team speed element that just isn't there on the 4th line when Morgan Barron's not there.
Yeah, just to clarify, when Morgan Barron was there at the beginning of the season before he got hurt, the results for the 4th line were excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were. And look, you have the team speed concern in the offseason when Nikolai Ehlers goes, but on the 4th line, when it was Pearson, Ford, and Nyquist, I think a lot of those extended defensive zone shifts that maybe that line did have was because of their lack of speed and getting beat through the neutral zone, and then you're in your own zone, and maybe on the road you're going up against a very good line or anything like that. But Morgan Barron was having a mini breakout, if you will, in the first 10 or 11 games that he was playing. So I'm excited to see him back. I've liked Cole Koepke so far this season. I know he hasn't gotten on the score sheet, but he's been a strong penalty killer. He adds a speed element. He adds a physicality element as well to that 4th line. So when he's healthy, I'd like to see him back in. And then Hayden Fleury as well, when he's healthy, we're not sure when that'll be. Obviously, Barron and Koepke are a lot closer to returning than Fleury. But when Fleury comes back, he's kind of in that mix with Stanley, Schenn, Miller, and then Fleury on that third pair. Top four solidified as of right now, Morrissey, DeMello, Samberg, Pionk. But we'll see what the third pairings are going to look like when Fleury comes back, which we're not really sure on an update on him, at least when it pertains to his timeline going forward. But Barron and Koepke on this homestand, presumably, as they're both in regular contact jerseys at today's skate.
I know the team had yesterday off. We saw Helly at the Grey Cup. I'm not sure if some of the other players popped in as well for that. But back on the ice today, I mean, what did you see out there? I mean, was it an energetic group? Are they working on special teams? I mean, what stood out to you from the on-ice portion of what happened today at the rink?
Yeah, they really did a little bit of everything, Huss. They didn't particularly work on special teams. They did a lot of short area battles as well, kind of closer to the far side. It was actually an open practice with a lot of kids taking in the skate. So they did these short area battle drills kind of right in front of where all the kids were sitting, and they absolutely loved it. And then after the fact, Hockey Academy actually got to ask Adam Lowry some hard-hitting questions, which was just really fun to sit in on.
You know what? I think you mentioned that, Remo. Do we have that?
No, I don't think it was filmed.
I'm going to post it. They posted too.
Oh, they did.
On the Instagram. You got it. They were amazing questions. The questions that you think kids would ask, like at the captain of the Winnipeg Jets. So,
can we play that just off the IG?
Yeah. Let me just rock it right here.
Let's get this pulled up, because Remo was to mention this to me during the show that this was there, and I was intrigued now that you've mentioned it, Connor.
Yeah,
figure the people, especially ones that might not be as social media savvy, might want us to pull it up here.
Alex, what do you think of brain rot?
I'll be honest, I don't know what that is. I don't think about it.
He's your wrist nose.
How is that? You guys got any?
Lowry with the 6'7". You must have been fired up, Connor. Did you get those kids? You being a big 6'7" guy, you were probably right there in the middle of those kids. They may have thought they were actually getting a question from you during that entire thing.
I had my hand up in the back, Huss, ready to ask. No, I did immediately send that video to my brother, who's 14, 15 years old, and he loved it. So again, like, I don't know. The questions got actually by the end. The questions got, some kid asked, like, what advice would you give a 12-year-old? Like, what do you think we should be working on at hockey? Like, this is a very good question. I was actually very impressed with some of the questions by the end of it.
Was there one other one, Reem?
No, that was all they post. I just love Adam Lowry's face when they're like, can you do a 6'6"? He's like, how old's my son? 6. And like him and his friends are shouting 6'7" all the time. Like we're at hockey on Saturday, and someone went on the scoreboard and just made it like 6'7", 6'7",
and then
like
they lost it.
Oh, the kids are like, "Oh, look at the scoreboard. At least it's not like 6'9", I guess."
Well, listen, it's the biggest. I've always said the biggest missed opportunity for a multitude of reasons was Stan not taking 67 as opposed to 64. And if Stanley was in the, like, you know, where he's at right now, but had always been wearing 6'7" because he is 6'7", and now this absolutely absurd trend of kids talking about it all the time, he would be one of the biggest stars in the NHL amongst kids from like 7 to 12.
100% he would. Wearing 67 and being 6'7", Huss, he would be a superstar right now. He would be the talk of all 12-year-olds across the country.
You know, the Ducks got it right when they drafted McQueen, and they gave him the same number as Lightning McQueen. I mean, you have to. There's these marketing opportunities don't come along that often. Like Mike Commodore taking number 64, you have to take advantage. Logan Stanley, I think he missed out on some big marketing dollars that could have got some.
Commodore did say in the end that was one of his biggest regrets, one of his biggest news. He should have just jumped on that and taken it and ran with it back when he was with the Canes.
He really, I mean, he had the red hair and the big beard when they went to the Cup, and he never did take 64. Everyone wanted him to. I thought he did with Detroit at the end, but he never did. Missed opportunity. You got to know. It doesn't like Jordan Tutu. What other number could he wear other than 22?
Exactly.
Like he knew.
Exactly.
You don't mess around when something like this is handed to you, this marketing opportunity.
Hey, listen, before we go, we're going to get to the cool bet lines right away. Now, we were all preoccupied with the Grey Cup. I will admit, I was originally really choked that this was the week that the Chiefs were playing the Broncos in that window at the same time at the Grey Cup. After they lost to the Broncos, I am thankful that I was not watching that game, and it would have completely triggered me. Chiefs are now 5-5 and like 50-50 to make the playoffs based on some of those numbers. But you got your boy Purdy and Kittle back, and Niners with a big win yesterday, Connor.
Unbelievable, Huss. Yeah, I like you. I mean, I was at the Grey Cup, so I didn't catch much of it, but I rewatched the highlights, and some of the takes that were going on with the Niners were ridiculous when it came to Mac Jones and, benching Brock Purdy, a soft benching, all of this. Like, it was getting so ridiculous that I just love the fact that Purdy came back and absolutely lit it up. They put up 40+ points on the Cardinals, division rival, and they're 7-4 and currently in the 7th seed in the NFC. And despite all these injuries on defense, have a very realistic shot of making the playoffs. And Huss, for the season, you look at Niners Panthers on Monday Night Football and probably think it doesn't look great or whatever. This is a huge game in the NFC upcoming this week. Niners Panthers Monday Night Football. Niners are 7-4. Panthers are 6-5 and just came off a big win against the Falcons. But yeah, Huss, you declared the Broncos as frauds, and then they beat the Chiefs this week.
I still kind of think they are, to be honest with you. I was very disappointed from what I saw. And listen, everyone knows I will ride with my guy Pat Mahomes until the end. I think he's the best to do it. He got outplayed by Bo Nix. I mean, I'll say that. I mean, at the end of that game, it was Bo Nix that made a couple big-time third-down plays, got them into field goal range, and they won it. Denver's going to break the 10-year reign of Reed and Mahomes in this group. I mean, predating Mahomes to Alex Smith on just owning the AFC West. But it is going to be interesting. And Remis, think about this right now. Like, the way the AFC playoffs look. You've got the New England Patriots at 9-2. You've got the Colts at 8-2, and you've got the Broncos at 9-2. All of whom are playing like incredibly easy schedules because they all sucked last year. I mean, they were down. They're playing 3rd or 4th place schedules. New England might have the easiest schedule the entire year, which is why I remember preseason, a lot of people going, you might want to hit that season over. Like, where are the losses coming? But it's going to make it that much more interesting. I mean, if you have teams like the Bills and the Chiefs in wild card spots, then I think still those teams probably will be favored, even if they're on the road against a Denver or an Indy or a New England, who look poised to win the divisions. And of course, the Ravens are clawing back from 1-5. They, like the Chiefs, are 5-5. The good news for them, though, is that they are just one game back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think everyone expects that by the end, the Ravens will be the team in the NFC North. NFC East game. Did you see any of the Sunday Nighter, Remo, when you got back from the Grey Cup? Pretty incredibly disappointing game for Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions last night, with a great opportunity, I think, to kind of move into maybe the spot, the number one spot of real contenders in the East or in the NFC. Goff at one time went 2 for 18. He finished 14 of 37 on the game. And despite another absolutely moronic decision by Nick Sirianni, Philly just somehow finds ways to win, even when they look pretty ugly doing it.
Jared Goff, outdoors, in weather. I had some friends who were in Philly. I think it was colder in Philly than it was for the Grey Cup. Jared Goff wearing a glove outdoors is just not going to go well for him. You saw so many inaccurate throws, and when they're at home in the dome, that stuff comes way more easily. So, it's going to be tough for them if they're in the playoffs and, they have to go out on the road. That's what we've seen, but we'll have to look going forward what happens there. But it was certainly a tough one, and we thought it was going to be a much more competitive game. You saw kind of low-scoring slop.
We got Raiders Cowboys tonight, which we'll get to in just a minute in the Cool Bet lines. But Connor, just before we go, speaking of Cool Bet, what a great time. We did a little VIP event with some of our sponsors and some of the media that were in town, Confusion Corner on Saturday. And Pat, Jake, and Ange and Finn out there. Just an absolutely awesome night. For me, that was actually the highlight of the entire Grey Cup week, kind of being able to host a bunch of the people that are our guests in town. And obviously, when they came in, they said they were going to do it up big, and they did.
Yeah, that was so much fun. I had an absolute blast. I mean, obviously, I'm producing NFL winners, so I talk to Pat and Jake, through a screen every Friday morning. But to meet the Cool Bet guys in person was an absolute blast. And Confusion Corner, shout out to the venue there, put on a great party. And yeah, it was great seeing them. Got some merch. I wore it Sunday morning on WST Sunday Live. My fresh new Cool Bet hat. So that was an absolute blast. And shout out to them for inviting us and inviting a ton of media members, and our guy Carter Chen, master of the content, was just cooking. Cooking.
Ritz Kraka cranked that out. I think by 8 in the morning the next day, that reel was popping, Remis.
Yeah, he did a pretty good job coming out, and
we need him to teach us a course. How can we be that efficient on social media? Like, do something and turn this around. He's an absolute machine.
It's hard to find the time. Like, I've done a couple, like when we're in the Play Now box, where they had the coat rack. That one really popped on social media when we did the tour. I've had some good ones, but yeah, finding the time to edit it all and do a quick turnaround, that's the real challenge.
He is. I was trying to get just take in the wisdom of him on the way back from the Labor Day game, to see how he does it. He uses one of those wand things, I guess, on the Google Pixel, and does it up anyways. What a character. It was a great crew, and thanks again to the fellas. And I think they had such a good time with our crew here in Winnipeg. They will definitely be back, and we do something in and around a Jet game, hopefully for the playoffs coming up, assuming that the team is in the playoffs a little later on. Well, listen, speaking of Cool Bet, let's get over to the lines for tonight's game, because we'll start with the Monday nighter, and it's not a good one, which I'm happy for, because after the last 3 days still needing to get back to 100%, the last thing I needed was a great Monday nighter to get me out of the house tonight. This is going to be low key. The Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites and minus 192 on the money line, while the Raiders are plus 162 and 3.5-point dogs. Just looking at player props, I think this could be a big time Dak Prescott game. Dak's total for passing minus 114, 258.5. Be honest, I thought that might be a lot higher. You can get plus 113 on over 268.5. The receiving props, I really could use a quiet night for George Pickens. I do not expect I will get that. The Pickens number, 65.5 receiving yards. CD Lamb's 85.5. But the one thing I'll say is the Raiders are a different team with Brock Bowers in, and he'll have his opportunity to make things happen tonight for the Raiders. But it's Cowboys in Vegas. Be very interesting. That my prediction, that's going to be 80-20 Cowboy fans, 80% Cowboy fans in the game tonight. I still can't believe on how many Chief fans there were there when I was at the Chiefs-Raider game last year. So the one thing, the Black Hole used to be one of the most intimidating places, and there's no way I'd be going there as a road fan. Well, now with the Raiders stinking and then being in Vegas where everyone loves to go, their home field advantage is basically gone, even though they have a great stadium. Guys, what do we think about tonight? Give me your favorite pick on the board. I'm going to read these out. Here are NHL lines. Carolina in Boston. Carolina minus 189. Boston, despite being first place, they're plus 158. The Oilers are in Buffalo to take on the Sabres. Edmonton minus 154. The Panthers are massive favorites, minus 278 against the Canucks. Really interesting game. LA is playing very well lately, minus 103 Caps minus 114. Your boy Kempe got paid, eh, Reem? Just under
Yeah, I was
11
gonna say
mil a year.
the free agent class. Now that we thought, this is going to be the best
Alex
free
Tuck,
agent class
and that's
ever.
it.
Yeah.
Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, all these guys, all signed. So Kempe's the latest one. I'm missing other ones. So Tuck's available. We'll wait and see.
Panarin?
Oh yeah, Panarin. Yeah, he's a big one.
He is, yeah. They're not too sure about that, but he would count. Alex Tuck, though, I think is the guy that certainly Buffalo's going to try to sign him. Whether that works or not, we will see. But yeah, the Kings are playing the Caps. That's a real tight one. Caps minus 114, Kings minus 103. Habs are in Columbus to take on the Blue Jackets. Interesting. Blue Jackets playing tonight at home, and then here tomorrow.
Oh, I think that game's on Prime. Is that the Prime game?
It must be the Prime game. It starts at 6:30, so I'm pretty sure that's alongside of it. Well, it's nice. We'll be getting Columbus on back-to-back with travel tonight. And then the Utah Mammoth and the Ducks later on. Utah, interesting, a slight road favorite against the Ducks. Ducks have lost 3 in a row after that big 7-game winning streak. Do we have, what's your favorite game if we're going to put something together tonight, boys?
My favorite game, I don't know if I want to make my pick from the game, but I'm going to be locked into Utah versus Anaheim. Those have been 2 of my favorite teams to watch early this season, and to see them go at it will be super fun. In terms of my favorite pick, I think I like the Oilers tonight. Like, maybe they're turning it around a little bit. They got the overtime win on the road against the Carolina Hurricanes. The Buffalo Sabres are not great right now. They just had Rasmus Dahlin out for, I think, personal reasons for a week or so. He's back now, but
Yeah,
they're
something
still
was up with his fiance, had some health issues or whatever.
Oh, I
He
didn't
was,
see that.
taking
Okay.
care of that. So, but yeah, so that's good news. He's back.
He's back, yeah.
All right, but anyways, I'm with you on the Oilers.
Oilers, yeah.
Remo, how about the Kings?
I like the Oilers. Yeah, I like the Kings. You know what? Charlie Lindgren is in goal for the Capitals, and they really stink when he's in goal. It hasn't worked out well. I know because I've played him a couple times in daily fantasy. So I do enjoy the Kings. I'm more of a player prop guy than picking outright games. And I will say a player that I'm eyeing tonight, Huss, for a point, minus 105 on the top line for Florida, Mackie Samoskevich.
Okay,
I'm
right on.
interested in him on the top line at whatever. They have a very high team total, big favorite at home. I'm on line 1 with Marchand and Lundell.
Okay, well, I mean, I do want to do a 3-gamer tonight. Okay, Oilers at minus 154, Kings at minus 102. I'm going to take the Ducks at home over Utah. Ducks minus 101, plus 550. Normally, I would send it to Jake and Pat and get it up in the combo cards with a nice little boost. But they are in the air right now and probably will be. So we'll do it the old-fashioned way. Might even use my $25 free bet from the UFC on the weekend. Shout out to my guy Big Maple, who also provided me with a winner for that.
You know, Logan Cooley had this hot start where he was player of the week. You know, he had that hat trick in the first period. We were crowning him. The next thing, got paid, signed the big contract. 2 points in his last 7 games. No goals. That's 2 assists, minus 3. He's a number 1 center. It hasn't gone well for him since the calendar turned to November. Interesting note there.
And just to finish it off, the other person that's not going well for right now is Jack Hughes.
Oh, my God.
Hughes is the latest victim of the Fleming curse. Frank the Tank, it was his 50th birthday. And if people are familiar with Frank the Tank from Barstool, big guy, shout out to him. He's been walking. He lost like 150 pounds or something like that. He's under 300 now. Still an absolute psycho when it comes to the Mets, but also the Devils. But he says, like, the Fleming curse goes back to, he claims that Seamus Fleming had a potato farm 3 weeks before the potato famine in Ireland. A pizza store at the foot of Mount Vesuvius before it erupted. It was Frank's birthday, 50th birthday. He was in Chicago at the office. They took him out to the nicest steakhouse in town to celebrate it. And it happened to be the New Jersey Devils all there, I guess, with their rookie dinner. So there's a picture of Frank, who's a pretty famous fan, there with all of the Devils. And then in the ensuing hours or whatever, a fluke accident happens. Jack Hughes gets cut, has to go to surgery, and is now out likely 8 weeks. Connor, he might miss the Olympics. And that is just devastating for New Jersey right now, who might actually look to get some center help in and be aggressive on it, because this is a very good team. But, I mean, that is your franchise player, your number one center. 2 months without Jack Hughes is huge for the New Jersey Devils. But the story around how it happened is just so freaking bizarre. Had to mention it.
So bizarre, Huss. He hasn't played a full season since the COVID year, the shortened year. And there's being, bad luck with injuries. There's bad luck with injuries, and then there's this. This is cursed activity here. I mean, you're getting cut. Your hand is getting cut at a team dinner. Liz had a funny tweet. She said all the Jets should be eating with plastic cutlery tonight of all their takeout food. The day that was announced, like, no, not risking it. But just what an absolutely cursed moment for Jack Hughes and the Devils.
Well, and I'm a big
photo
Frank the
all
Tank
over the
guy.
place is just
I'm a big Frank the Tank guy, and the fact that this just plays more into the curse that has made him the crazy man that he is online, Remo, is just, I mean, you couldn't even write it up this way if you wanted to.
Yeah, I thought that maybe he had a couple drinks and tried to cut his steak and cut his finger instead, but it sounds like he grabbed a glass and it broke. I don't know the real story behind this, but yeah, he's a guy who hasn't been able to finish seasons, and he fell to the boards last year and injured his shoulder and came back this year. To have a freak accident like this is what Elliott put out. You just feel bad, and yeah, it could affect Team USA at the Olympics, although I think he had a worse Four Nations than Kyle Connor, and no one seemed to notice. And Kyle Connor was the one who was healthy scratched in the final. But I don't know if you noticed this part. New Jersey Devil fans are leaving negative online reviews on Yelp and Google for the Chicago Cut Steakhouse. Greg Wyshynski putting this out there. Here's one of them. Let me read it here. The Devils beat the Blackhawks, and then the restaurant tried to cut off Jack Hughes' finger with a glass. Now he's out 2 months. Do not recommend this place. Go Devils. They hurt a hockey player, Jack Hughes, severely injured his hand with glass. If you go there, watch out. I will say, while this is funny, these are real restaurants where people try to earn a living. Don't do that. Don't do that. But I am having a joke, and I hope they get removed.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, listen, this is basically screwing my fantasy team for the year without my number one center. I don't know what I'm going to do for that, but that was tough. But anyway, just to wrap up, we're going to go Edmonton, LA, Ducks tonight. See if we can pop a winner, plus 550 over at CoolBet. Hey, if you haven't played there before, use that promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And make sure to stay tuned to WST. Now that we've got the boys in Winnipeg and they know how we roll here and the incredible support that CoolBet has here, we're going to have some really fun stuff coming up, potentially poker related as well, as we get into our upcoming events as we try to finally dethrone Jeff Hamilton, who, of course, joined us earlier today. But great to have Pat, Jake, Ange, and the boys here. It was a hell of a lot of fun, and really appreciate them for everything they do for us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, gang, that is up. We got a day of recovery. We get back into it. Game day tomorrow. Jets and Blue Jackets. And then, of course, Nikolai Ehlers on Friday. But what a great cup it was. Once again, congratulations to everyone that had a piece of this one, whether you were Wade Miller putting the big show on, or Ian Marcoux, and all the amazing people that we're behind the Grey Cup Festival, the hundreds of volunteers of people that stepped up, or just Bomber fans that took in the games, took in the events, and became great hosts for everyone coming here. It was truly a phenomenal week and a really proud week for the city of Winnipeg. And now O'Shea and Walters are back, and it's time to get the Bombers back in the big game next year in Calgary. Thanks to Jeff Hamilton, Ken Wiebe, Connor Ravchak, Michael Remis, all of you for joining us today on the program. Have a great Monday night, and we will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. live on YouTube, shortly thereafter in your podcast feed to get you ready for the Jets' return home to kick off this 3-game homestand tomorrow against the Columbus Blue Jackets. For the fellas, I am Andrew Paterson. Have a great one. We'll see you tomorrow right here on WST.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.